We'll now move to our next item on the agenda. And I think that this is the item that most people that are here today has been waiting for. This is to consider adopting resolution number 2017/44, approving the county's proposal to be awarded $70 million in state funding for the West County Reentry Treatment and Housing Facility project in the Richmond area, authorizing the sheriff to submit the proposal to the state and taking related action as recommended by the sheriff coroner, our own Dave Livingston, who I don't see, but
we've got his undersheriff. So.
We have a number of the undersheriff, but who's going to be Mike?
My name is Undersheriff Mike Casson with the Sheriff's Office. Assisting with this presentation today will be Captain Tom Chalk and Assistant Sheriff Matt Schuler, who is in charge of the Custody Services Bureau. Obviously, thank you for having us, Chair and Supervisors. This is a very important application and project for us, and we believe it is the humane thing to do within the Contra Costa County justice system. We've been here before. This is our second time presenting on a jail construction RFP from the state. We weren't successful last year, but we hope to be successful this year. I'd like to say the sheriff regrets that he couldn't be here today. He's in Washington, D.C. at a major county sheriff's conference meeting, and it was scheduled well in advance, and those plans could not have been changed. Before I get into this, I want to recognize, as I did last year, Mr. Tim Ewell from the CEO's office, who has assisted greatly always with making sure that we're well prepared and exploring all avenues in regards to county government and our proposal. The proposal is very similar to last year's proposal. Again, we are not adding capacity to our current custody system. However, this will likely be our last chance to seek or get jail construction funds through the state. There's a few items I want to discuss that have been swirling around our application and our proposal. The first one is in regards to our ICE detainees at West County Detention Facility, and some trying to create a nexus between this proposal and that. Here are the facts. We have 197 such persons in our custody today pursuant to a contract with the U.S. Marshals Service. We receive $82 a day per person as part of that contract. That contract generates $5.9 million in revenue for the county. After our expenses, the net gain to the county is $3+ million. This revenue reduces the taxpayer's obligation to support general fund operations such as those of the Sheriff's Office. And the fact being, if these persons were not at the West County Detention Facility, they would be located at 13 other facilities across the state: Yuba, San Bernardino, Kern County, Sacramento County, and Orange counties, as well as anywhere in the United States, oftentimes not near their family members. Captain Chalk, in his presentation, will speak more about the physical plant of the West County Detention Facility, and I know there's been issues talked about why can't a building at West County be retrofitted, and we'll talk about that. In regards to our county inmate population, which is another point that has been brought up in discussions, I want to point out we have to take all persons that are mandated into our custody or brought to us by arresting agencies throughout this county. We have no discretion in that. We can't pick and choose who we want, many of whom are accused of serious violent felonies and often have medical and mental health needs that we have to address. We do have systems in place to reduce the amount of inmate population from what it would be if we didn't have these systems in place, and I'm going to talk about those systems. We have aggressive site release policy. A lot of people are site released right from the back door of the main jail. We have a substantial custody alternative program. I'll talk about that more. The county has a pretrial program. The county leads the state in a number of split sentences. And many of our inmates are released pursuant to the OR from the courts when they go before the court. Back to our custody alternative facility. That's a facility we run here in Martinez, which is basically remote monitoring or checking in of people who are not in physical custody. Last year, calendar year, our average daily population in that program was 386 persons. This calendar year, we have 425 persons in the custody alternative program. Today, as we sit here today, there's 467 persons in the custody alternative program. So you can see it's growing. This population accounts for 25% of all the persons we have in our custody system in Contra Costa County. So we do a lot to keep people out of custody. This proposal specifically is to reduce the barriers that prevent everybody in our custody system here in Contra Costa County from having access to programs, having access to medical treatment, and having access to mental health treatment while in custody. And it will provide for a warm handoff for those that are in custody. I think I've addressed the major points that I've seen swirling around our application recently. And with that said, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Captain Tom Chalk.
Thank you, Under Sheriff Casson. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be back before you today. Supervisor Joya, sir, I don't believe I can get this presentation done in 10 minutes, but I'll try my best.
And I'm not asking for that.
No, it's a comic relief.
I was trying to sort of have the last one, since it was a report, be shorter so that you could have more time, in fact.
Well, I appreciate that, sir. And having done this 21 times, I'm sure there's a lot of folks in the audience that could do it just as well as I can that are here today. So, as we move through the presentation, there are several key components that I'm going to point out and highlight frequently through the presentation itself, and one of which, the reoccurring theme is, this is the county's serious attempt for jail reform all across our system, and that's our approach. And as you see as we move through this, and if you read the literature and the supporting documentation, we articulate that very well. And one of the things, I'm not going to read through the entire PowerPoint word for word, so if I skip through, I'm making sure to cover all the important things. So we propose to use Senate Bill 844 as the springboard to achieve the goals that we have. What Senate Bill 844 is, it's a construction financing program that actually provides $270 million in state lease revenue bond financing, although my slide says $250. That's intentional because Napa County is receiving $20 million of that. So we have $250 million to be split up between the large counties, medium counties, and small. Contra Costa County is a large county, and as you see up on the slide there, we are competing for one award only at $70 million. So it's very competitive. And I'm just going to go over the overview of the Senate bill. Just like Senate Bill 863 when we were here before you last, funding consideration is still given to counties that are seeking to replace compacted, outdated, or unsafe housing. Additionally, we must provide adequate space for the provision of reentry program behavioral health treatment. And counties must demonstrate that the construction of replacement cells will not add to the capacity of the county's jail system. And I'll go back to that later on because that's a very important element to our proposal. And I know it's very important to the people in the county as well. And funding is for construction only. It does not finance programming, does not finance any behavioral health treatment or personnel for that matter. It is for jail construction or renovation. And I'll also talk about renovation and why that's not a feasible alternative for us, and I'll get to that in a moment. Some other considerations. We must provide on-site, in-person visitation that meets or exceeds Title 24 requirements. And what that means is the government code dictates how much visitation people in custody receive, and we far exceed that requirement with this building project, and that's face-to-face visitation in addition to video visitation if our incarcerated population choose to do so. We also, what's different in Senate Bill 844 as opposed to 863 is counties must describe their efforts to address sexual abuse in its adult local criminal justice facility, which we do very well. We've been a long-time supporter of PREA, and we have mechanisms in place. We also must provide documentation evidencing our environmental impact study was complete and free of any litigation. That compliance has been completed, which was not for Senate Bill 863. Funding is also limited to counties who have received partial funding or never received funding in the past under Assembly Bill 900, Senate Bill 1022, or Senate Bill 863. Matter of fact, out of the 13 large counties that we have competed with for Senate Bill 1022 and 863, we're the only county in the state of California, large county, that has not received any funding whatsoever under any of these Senate bills. Additionally, with Senate Bill 844, we must certify and covenant in writing that housing capacity will not be leased to anyone for a period of 10 years upon construction completion. And we estimate construction completion would be in June of 2021. Now, our proposal and everything that we have done up to this point didn't just happen upon our own ideas. We, at the request actually of community members, did a completely new jail needs assessment in 2015. And this was done by an independent firm named HDR, and they specialize in construction, jail construction design, needs analysis, and so forth. We opened up our facilities, our entire system, completely transparent, let them run loose and do their thing. And this report, our application, our jail needs assessment, or this report especially, includes a summary of the programming, treatment, and bed capacity projections for the year 2020 as described in our jail needs assessment. And that's a public document, and it was a part of the board packet. And the community has an opportunity to read that. And I suggest that they do. Our attempt to solve a major problem in our custody facility, specifically the MDF next door, the steps that we are taking to solve this didn't happen overnight. I saw something that was interesting on the internet that what we're trying to do is following Trump's agenda. Well, we started this project in 2007. And in 2011, we continued with a updated jail needs assessment. We actually went a few steps further, hired an architect and programming firm to develop a space analysis, concept design, and construction estimate. In 2013, we updated the J&A again, and then we submitted an application for project financing under SB 1022. We were not successful then. And in 2015, we redid everything. I just talked about the 2015 jail needs assessment from HDR. We completed the SB 863 application, and this is an interesting note, if our score in that application, we ranked a half a point behind the highest ranking application in the state. And unfortunately, we were deducted 12 points because at the time our environmental impact report was tied up in litigation, so we did not receive the 12 points for that. And if we would have had those 12 points, we would have had $80 million in 2015. Just real quick overview of our county's current system. So we have 3 jail facilities. We have the Martinez Detention Facility, which is next door. That's our maximum security, high security facility, which is the primary facility of the issues that we're trying to address, and I'll get into that in a moment. And in Richmond, we have our West County Detention Facility, which is rated our medium security facility. And then in Marsh Creek, in the east part of our county, we have our sentenced medium security facility at the base of Mount Diablo.
Before you leave that slide, Captain Chalk, These are not to scale. I think for the benefit of the public, our Martinez detention facility looks like it's almost larger than West County. So do you want to just sort of describe the difference in size of acreage on which they sit?
Of course, ma'am. So the Martinez Detention Facility, as everybody here knows where it is, they've seen it, it's across the street. It encompasses a block or two of space. The parking lots abut our residential neighborhoods and some businesses, and of course the courthouse. The West County Detention Facility, and I'll get into it in a few minutes here, that's a 47-acre campus, much different. And I have some better photos that are coming up to show the distinction between Martinez and West County. And Marsh Creek, which was built in 1930, is a very small plot of land, rolling hill landscape. Not suitable for anything other than a dormitory-style housing unit for a small population of sentenced individuals in our county. Would you like me to expand any further? Okay.
No, I just wanted to make sure if someone wasn't familiar with both sites, they didn't think that we had all the space next door at Martinez.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So, what we're trying to do, what is our demonstrated need for this project, which we have titled the West County Reentry Mental Health and Treatment Facility, referred to as a WRTH. Basically, it's very simple. A large segment of the incarcerated population in Contra Costa County are individuals who are required to stay in custody in a facility across the street in the high security, maximum security facility. It could be because of their charges, it could be because they're protected custody, it could be because of the type of gang they may affiliate with. There's a number of other reasons. And unfortunately, those people who are forced to be housed there in that sense are housed in a facility that was constructed in 1978, which is extremely outdated and overcrowded. The Martinez Detention Facility was originally designed for 384 people. Today, I think the count, I know the count was because we looked it up before we came over here this morning, there are 683 people housed there this morning. Okay, so they're double bunked, it's overcrowded. The cells were designed to be single occupancy. Almost all of them, with the exception of a handful, are double occupancy. And the other thing is,
Chalk,
yes, ma'am.
if I could, that if people haven't been in the jail and you hear about a cell being double bunked, there's also living area and communal space, and those also have bunks in them. Am I not correct?
We were able to remove the bunks that are in the communal space.
Okay, great.
Which was
last time I was in the jail, they were still there. So
at one point, our count in the jail was over 1,000, and we've got that down. The average daily population of the Martinez facility this year is 660. At any given time, it could elevate. Today it's 683. Last week, I think it broke 100 or 700. Excuse me, and. But we did get rid of the bunks, and that's largely attributed to our pretrial program, and because that's
thank you.
A great program. When the MDF was built, it was never designed to house people long term. It's for that reason it's essentially devoid of any program space. There's very little educational, vocational reentry programs available as a reason for that, and it also serves as the de facto mental health facility in this county, and it's not suited to meet that need. I'll give you a count. So January of this year, we had 277 people who were open to mental health in our system. 184 of those were diagnosed as moderate to severe for specialty mental health reforms upon release, and then 93 were moderate to low. If those numbers don't indicate that we have a huge need to address the mental health needs of our incarcerated population, I don't know what does. So this is to give you an example of the type of program space I'm talking about that is not feasible or doesn't do much for us. This is the program room on the mental health module. You can fit about 2 people in there. Additionally, so limitations on the programs we have at the MDF based on its design and capacity now are not much at all. We have independent study, some religious programs, and we have a library cart. And again, when I mentioned the MDF was designed for short-term housing, what that actually means is that facility was designed as a pretrial facility. So people would come into custody. They weren't intended to spend a lot of time there because they're going back and forth to court, and either their case gets adjudicated, they either get released on OR, or they are time served, or they serve a sentence in the county, quite possibly, or they get sentenced to prison. With the passage of AB 109, we've had a few issues crop up that now we have people who otherwise would go to state prison, where there's far more resources and things for them to do, such as treatment, vocational type programs. They're serving their state sentence in our county jail, and primarily at West County. And we have people in custody who have sentences over 5 years or more.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes, sir.
Because I know I keep hearing reference to AB 109. So when I read your jail assessment study, it specifically said, the impact of AB 109 on the number of residents in the detention system has been modest. Because the county has historically sent relatively small numbers of people to serve their sentence in state prison, relatively small numbers of people have been returned to county control since the advent of AB 109. That is from your jail assessment study. So I want to be clear. Do you want to quantify that number? Because I keep hearing, I want to make sure we're clear on facts, that, well, AB 109 has resulted in a shift of some individuals from state prison to county jails, but the jail assessment study quantifies it as a pretty small number.
And that's an accurate assessment. However, as time goes on and you have people that are sentenced for long periods of time, those numbers add up. It may not affect your total population count, but it affects the amount of time someone spends in custody at Martinez.
Right. But the jail assessment study quantified it as a pretty small effect.
I think it was modest, I believe was
Correct.
the terminology.
Is
Yes,
that 25? Is that 50? Is that 10?
we have 102.
Okay, 102. I don't think of that as a modest number.
But we also have people who are, the majority of our population, or a large segment, are pretrial now, and we don't know how many of those are going to receive an AB 109 type sentence. So those statistics could elevate, they could level, or they could decrease.
I understand, but 102 out of, give or take, 660? That's
correct.
That's
Well, actually, a little bit more than that.
The total jail capacity, because many of these are low-level offenders, and they're all. So, what's the total rated capacity of both jails is?
Well, we're comparing apples to oranges if we compare jails
West
from one to
County
the other.
isn't
Yeah, no,
overcrowded.
but I'm just saying that the total rated capacity between.
So the rated capacity of
about
Martinez,
1,800 if you add the two together, 695 plus 1096.
with a mixture of high security,
Right,
max security,
right,
medium
right.
security,
Okay,
and minimum
thanks,
security.
thanks.
And unfortunately, we have, maybe I'm jumping ahead, but I'll just, because it's a good opportunity to point something out. Even if West County, which is where we have some bed space, it's not the type of bed space that we need. If that facility were entirely empty, it has no impact on the daily average population of the people housed in Martinez. And I think I'll spend a little time on that when we get there in a moment, sir.
Thanks.
So I just discussed kind of our limitations at the Martinez jail, the overcrowding, the lack of program space, the design of that facility is not being used the way it was intended, with double occupancy cells that are designed for one person. And I just want to show in contrast what occurs at our medium security facility based on its design and based on the people that are housed there. So West County is an open campus. It's, like I mentioned earlier, it sits on 47 acres. It's actually a pretty place, believe it or not, if you've ever had a chance to walk through there. And the distinction is the people that are housed there, they have to walk everywhere to and from to receive their programming, to go to medical, to go to court holding. It's an open style campus, and therefore that limits the type of classification of person that can be housed there. And I'll get into that in just a moment. But I wanted to show the distinction between the two. This is a typical classroom, one of 12 at West County, I believe, that the folks go down to class every day. That's another photo. And that's their library. These are some of the current programs that we offer at West County now. I'm not going to read through all of them, but there's a myriad of different types of classes. And so here's the big question. Well, all right, you're after trying to build a new jail with new cells and decommission existing cells. Why can't you just renovate? If you got all this space out there at West County, why can't we just add whatever it is we need to add to make that happen? Or for that matter, why can't we do something at Martinez to renovate? Right? And that would be the ideal scenario if that's something that we could accomplish. And so what we did, and we've done it more than once, but we did it again recently, we hired a firm, HDR, to come in and do a suitability study to determine the feasibility of converting existing housing into high security housing, which is something that we've looked at going back 2007. And each time, there's no new revelation. Everything comes out to be the same. It's just not doable. And I'll just give you a few reasons why. I do have an engineer here that can also attest to specifically the MDF, why we can't renovate if that's something that the board so chooses to want to listen to. But I'll do my best to explain it. So Martinez, we cannot renovate Martinez. The problem with that facility is it's structurally unified, meaning that there's pillars spread every 15 feet throughout that facility for earthquake reasons and just the structure of the facility itself. It's a hardened facility made out of concrete walls, metal doors, and the existing footprint, meaning the land that it sits on and the space, does not allow us to expand outward or upward. And of course, that facility was never built with any meaningful program space because it was never designed to be a program type facility. Here's a photo of one of the housing units, and you can kind of see these structural pillars that are throughout the entire facility, which they're in itself a security issue for us due to distorted sight lines and that sort of thing, which falls back in line with one of the key considerations of SB 844, where they talk about to replace or renovate unsafe, unsecure type housing, and that's just one example of some of our safety concerns. Moving on to West County. This is the, I think we should probably spend a little bit of time talking about. This is where, by doing this presentation and listening to the community, there seems to be that big question. What if we were to move out ICE? Or what if we were to just vacate these buildings? Why can't you take that empty space and house our high security, maximum security people out there? And this is why. And I understand it's not the easiest, if you're not part of the system, understanding how our classification system works, I get it. It's not an easy thing to comprehend. I'll do my best to articulate that. So the cells themselves, let's start there. The cells at West County right now are double bunked, meaning there's two people in them. They're called dry cells. There's no there's no toilet, there's no sink. The people have to use a common area sink, common area toilets. So inside of a cell, there's a desk and two bunks. If we were to, for some reason, if it was possible, add plumbing, which there's no plumbing, so we'd have to add that, add toilets, add a sink. It's not feasible, however, let's just say it's possible. The problem with that is once you put a sink and a toilet in the cell designed for two people with a specific square footage, it takes us out of compliance with Title 24 because now the cell is too small, open square footage-wise for two people. So that's one reason. The cells have wooden doors. We have sheetrock walls, and this is when I tell people this, they can't believe it. Our incarcerated population at West County have keys to their doors. They do. The other thing, being at medium security, all the program space and visiting space and all the services, medical, dental, laundry, you name it, court holding, are not located on the housing unit. So on that 47-acre campus, when it's time for our people to go to school or to go anywhere, they all leave at the same time. They walk single file. They're out amongst each other. They can't be enemies with each other. They can't be in certain types of gangs to be out there in that open environment. And with a maximum security facility, we have to bring all those services to them because of security and movement issues. So that's another element.
And while you're on that, and I don't know, Captain Schock, if you're going to get to it, the mental health component of the infeasibility also of West County as it currently is configured. What are some of the factors that you look at that you see as desirable and needed to have adequate mental health facilities that are not present there now and that would pose a challenge?
The properly engineered and right type of mental health treatment space, for starters. I'll show you what I mean by that. It's talking about very specifically, smartly designed housing units that are made for that type of population. That's one. Two, we don't have the services at the moment to really expand any type of mental or behavioral health treatment out at West County or at the MDF for that matter. And that's part of our proposal as well. This whole system change, this whole proposal, this shift in our current jail system to show that it's time for some reform and we got to start handling these problems, specifically the mental health and behavioral health issues. We designed it as part of this plan, and yes, there's a cost associated with that annually because we can't do it with the staff that we have at the moment. Is there any follow-up, ma'am?
No, and I think you'll be going, as you talk about the new configuration, some of the newer services that will potentially be cited there. Currently, I would just ask you to clarify, too, if someone is severely mentally ill or mentally ill to the point where they don't have to be hospitalized, are you able to send them down to West County, or where are we putting them?
Our concern for, there's a vulnerable population in our current jail system, and depending on the type of mental health or behavioral health needs of some of these people, they get preyed upon if they're in the wrong environment. And it's our duty to make sure that they're safe and their needs are taken care of. And when you have an open, medium security, kind of a flowing environment, it's not controlled enough to have people who may get preyed upon by somebody else based on because they might act differently than someone else. They need to be in their own cohort and have the adequate type of treatment and supervision. The medium security design doesn't facilitate that or accommodate that. And this photo here, this is a better example of the campus that we have at West County. And the little X-like, I don't know if you can see the cursor, these are the housing units, the medium security housing units at West County. The square building here is one of our program areas for our women. We have programming, medical, and dental in this building here. We have visiting over here. We have our kitchen laundry services in here. Courts holding way over here to the left. And as you can see, when it's time to send everybody to those programs or wherever they need to go, it's a long walk to be out in the open amongst others if you're not classified properly. And when you build a maximum or high security unit, all these things I pointed out, you have to incorporate those into the new facility. And that's another reason why, even if we were to demo, if we had a completely empty building here, we would just be building the same project. The reason why we don't want to demo anything, because A, it doesn't make any sense to at the moment, and B, the proposed site, I'm making people dizzy with that cursor, I'll stop. The proposed site itself, in addition to it already being plumbed for the facility that we're trying to build, is located very strategically next to, do you see the A there? That's our visiting area, which we would work. The citizens come in through a tunnel and they do their visiting with the medium security people. Now, in a maximum security facility, we have to put the visiting in there, which we have planned, but we would have that, we need that tunnel coming from the current visitation center into the new facility so our parents of children or others can get into that facility. If we were to put that facility anywhere else, we would have the issue of what do we do with the public? How do they get 2 acres out here in the rain or whatever? It doesn't work. So the site that we chose is the most feasible, efficient, and doable site. And by the way, so this is the 47-acre campus. The site that we have chosen takes up 2.38 acres out of the 47. It's not huge. In comparison, if you look next door, our neighbors, Those are the biggest warehouses I've ever seen in the world. And they could fit our entire jail, it looks like, in those. So our facility is not that big when I say 47 acres or a new facility on 2. It's all relative. And finally, why can't we renovate at Marsh Creek? I touched on it earlier. It's an interesting place to see. Built in the 30s, it's a dormitory-style housing arrangement. The people out there go out in the county and do certain types of public works projects, that sort of thing. It's very small, and it's just not feasible to have a facility the size of ours that we need. Oh, and this is another thing that was pointed out to me by someone in the community who had mentioned the trouble that they have, and this is something that we didn't really think about if we even were to build at Marsh Creek, that it could take almost 2 hours, sometimes over 2 hours, if you had to rely on public transportation to get from Richmond all the way to Marsh Creek Jail. And when you talk about encouraging family to come visit their loved ones in custody, and you rely on public transportation, a 2-hour trip is not a good thing.
Is there a reason you just picked Richmond? Folks come from all over the county to visit people.
I was waiting for John to say
This idea that, I mean, I know we have a large percentage of incarcerated folks from West County.
Oh, John,
but
it's
it was a
because it's
Richmond
the
resident,
farthest
sir.
away.
All right.
It was a Richmond resident who pointed that out, and we were in a public hearing.
I'm just making an observation respectfully.
Moving forward. So, what are we proposing to do? Now, this is obviously a summary. It's a PowerPoint presentation. I can't articulate and describe everything that we have laid out. It's very well laid out in our actual application in a jail needs assessment and other supporting documentation that we've supplied. But in a nutshell, we have basically 7 high security rated housing units for a total of 416 beds. One of the units is an acute services unit for the men. We also have a provision for females. I'll get to that in a moment. For men with serious and persistent mental illness who cannot function in general population. We also have incorporated into the plan a special services unit, which is 64 bed maximum for men who are experiencing short-term episodes of decompensation, detox, or need stabilization. And then ideally, once, let's say you move out of the special services unit, then you move into the general population housing, which we have 5 of those.
Can you go back on that last chart? 'Cause I think it's important to note that, and I appreciate hearing from a lot of folks who really are strong advocates for those who need mental health services, but I just want to understand these beds, because really there are a number of mental health advocates who are supporting this proposal because of services for mental health. We're pointing out here that 32 of the 416 beds are specifically for people with serious and persistent mental illness. I want to be clear. It's not 416, it's 32 out of 416. Important, but not a small number. Because there are many people supporting it on the mental health component. But I want to understand the distinction between the types of individuals in the 32 and the 64. The 32 are those who are, again, serious mental illness, 64, short-term detox, things like that. So you could explain the distinction between the two for us?
I'm not a provider of behavioral health or mental health treatment. We obviously relied on our outside experts to help design these. I do know what I do know about these beds and the distinction between the two. For instance, the 32 beds in the acute services unit have special features. There's certain types of glazing. There's factors taken into consideration regarding safety for that type of population. So I do know that goes into the planning. But let me just, sir, you had mentioned this relatively small population. I mentioned before, at any given time, we had 277 people in our, that all of those people would be eligible to come over, but not all of them are going to require acute services. Not all of them are experiencing short-term episodes of decompensation or detox or need stabilization. Many of them just require some type of psychotropic medication, and as long as they take it Although they may or may not qualify to be at West County in medium security, they certainly would be a great candidate to come into the new facility because that is one of its main focuses.
Well, and to your point, also, although 32 are for the most acutely mentally ill, having the 64 for the short-term episodes of decompensation, detox, etc., currently we don't have something of that nature at either jail. And so while John is saying 32, I mean, this number is much closer to 196 when you look at that expanded capacity that we currently do not have. And that doesn't, I know you're going to go into it, but also the additional programs that are now going to be available for the mentally ill at West County Detention Facility. Because if you look at statistically, recent statistic I saw was that, we have more mentally ill people in our jails than we do in our hospitals. And many people who arrive at our jails do not self-report their level of mental illness, perhaps because they don't want to be stuck in a small cell, sequestered away in Martinez. But if we have programs available to stabilize them, and particularly when we don't have them for as long as they might have in state prison, when we have them for a shorter period of time, this is something very valuable. And I know you'll be talking about the other additional mental health services that we have not even touched upon previously in our justice system or in our jail system.
Yes, ma'am. And to add one note about the self-reporting or lack thereof, we do get reports from our mental health professionals in our facilities that people do come in and do not indicate that they require or they some type of psychotropic medication or whatever it may be because they don't want to be precluded from going out to West County because people don't want to stay at the MDF.
Right, and I think it's something that has been coming out through our stepping up process. I think it's important. I'm just going to put in a little note here. This isn't all we're doing to try to keep the mentally ill out of our jails. And you could maybe touch upon our MET teams that we now have throughout the county that are interacting with the mentally ill in the community prior to them having to be incarcerated. We've got some amazing programs where the goal is to keep people out of jail, but once they're there, we do need to help them. And the whole point of the Stepping Up initiative, which is something that we are going to be bringing to the Board of Supervisors for a workshop to determine how much further we want to go with that, is to really look at every opportunity we intercept with someone who is mentally ill, well beyond the time that they come in contact with the justice system, and then be able to provide services to prevent them from being incarcerated. But once they're incarcerated, we need to have some additional shared information, and this was something that we discussed recently when I was up in Sacramento. We had Chris Simmons, Captain Simmons from the Sheriff's Department. We had our Chief Probation Officer, Todd Bellecci, there. We had our Public Defender, Robin Lepetsky, there. We had from our Prosecuting Attorney's Office, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Tom Kensock there, and myself. And there we were talking about how right now you and the jails don't have the ability to get the medical record of someone coming to the jail. You don't know if someone has had some mental health issues previously unless it's part of their criminal record. And those are some of the things we're really trying to address. But I think it's very important to look at this is just one additional tool we have to treat the mentally ill that are cycling repeatedly through our jails. Yes, all of us would love to not have anyone mentally ill show up in jail, but when people commit serious crimes or pose a danger either to themselves or to the community because of their conduct, there are consequences, and we need to have the right tools to address that. So I digress slightly, but once you were talking about some of the mental health services, and particularly the issue of how do we deal with mentally ill individuals or those who have a history of mental illness who present in our jails but don't self-report.
Yeah. And I'll have some questions at the end about some, as I appreciate we are all here committed to better mental health services across the continuum. And I just think that we can't use, and the questions I will have deal with sort of the effectiveness of how we look at this proposal. And I appreciate that the goal is to serve people. as Federal Supervisor Glover and I years ago started to develop a reentry plan before AB 109 passed. And we were the first county before Alameda. Alameda has been great to put a fair amount of money toward community-based services for reentry. In fact, about 25% of our AB 109 dollars go to community-based services in reentry. And so the question here is identifying the right place along the continuum to make the investment. And I will get back to this later, is the investment we make on the pre-incarceration side for mental health services that keep people out of jail. If that's the question, is how we continue to prioritize that. I'm acknowledging there's a need inside, but it's not the only place. And where do we put the limited funds we have that are most cost effective to keep people out of incarceration and serve mental health?
Okay, what?
I didn't want to respond, but I wanted to respond because I know you care about
Okay,
this issue, and I
what
just
I'm
wanted
going
to
to ask
right,
is that
right.
board members refrain from comments or questions. Let him finish his presentation, because I think some of the questions that you have may be answered. Let's let him go through his presentation.
Thank you, Chair.
So altogether, we have the reentry and treatment facility design plan. 25,000 square feet approximately are dedicated to vocational and rehabilitative programming, contact visiting for parents and their children, non-contact visiting, and clinical and medical services. I've listed up there our program educational space also exists with on the housing units. We have a full integrated rehabilitation and reentry services center, a workforce readiness center, family visiting center with the contact visitation, which I'll just note that we don't do now. We have never done, and that's something, in my opinion, that is extremely important to the people in the community. There are studies that show that parents who have a bond with their child while they're in custody have a better success rate upon release, and that's something that the sheriff was committed to incorporating in a high security facility, which if you look around the state, there's really not many of those, and we're proud of that. Some of the programs in mental health treatment to be added. Now, this is fully articulated in our application, but this is just basically a snapshot. I didn't make any of this up. We have people help us out with this that are experts in the field. Some of the expanded behavioral health services that are proposed. Everything is validated, evidence-based, based on trauma and trauma-informed. And you can just kind of read here. Again, one thing that when I talk about early on, I think it was my first slide in the introduction, I mentioned that this is our system jail reform, meaning that this facility also has rippling effects that affect our other facilities. For instance, the Parenting Inside Out program, we already have that. We don't have the child visitation element to it, but is it fair to say, okay, if you're housed in the new facility, you get the gold standard, but for everybody else at West County, you don't. So we are going to open that to all people at West County, including women. The building at the top left is the proposed site. This is the site context. And as you can see, the housing units are up here at the top. This whole area here is the Workforce Readiness Center and the rehabilitation areas. We will have a visitation tunnel from our current visiting center into the new facility. One of the other unique elements about this proposal is the cost savings involved. When you build a new facility, typically you're going to have to build laundry facilities, kitchen facilities, administrative offices. And when you have a set of money and a budget to work with, you don't want to have to tie up square foot, which equals dollars, building laundry and kitchen and everything else. When West County was first built, it was built for future development, meaning that we're able to leverage existing infrastructure, which saves us on square footage costs because we don't have to build certain unnecessary things, and we're able to apply that to 25,000 square foot of program space. That's not your typical build of a new facility, because what most agencies would try to do is maximize the amount of cells. That's not our plan. Our plan is a full balance between treatment space, vocational space, housing unit, classroom space, and then, of course, trying to get the maximum benefit to the most people on our system moved into that new facility. So it's kind of a balance, and we relied on architects who do this for a living. They build jails all over the world to help us with those sorts of numbers and to make sure they match out and they work, and that we could fall within budget. This is the Reentry Service Center and building support on the main floor. As you can see, it's not just in theory. We do have the Child Parent Visitation Center built into that, multiple classrooms, multiple small groups, standard program rooms, Workforce Readiness Center as well. And these are housing units, again, dual multi-purpose rooms, program space on the housing units. And that's important, because if you rely on just having program space in one location, and if it's not on the housing unit, then you limit the amount of time the people who are in custody can receive programs. We can expand our CBOs to come into this facility much longer than we would if we didn't incorporate that space on the housing unit. And that's just the site plan. So there are regional impacts to our proposal. 400 people approximately will be moved out of the MDF. We'll close 2 housing units, and I'll get to that in a moment. And we're going to allow all the cells in Martinez to be single occupied as they were originally designed. And I did hear somebody talk in one of our presentations that they thought that, well, that wouldn't be fun if you were just by yourself in a cell. I would argue that I would rather not have someone go to the bathroom next to my head when I'm sleeping, and have more space. And I think if you ask anybody, that they would rather have a cell to themselves. They still come out on free time and interact quite often. We will decommission 420 beds at the MDF. That gives us a net reduction of 4 beds total for our entire system. We've looked at ways, and we continue to see if we can vacate some of the vacated space can be modestly repurposed, small meeting spaces perhaps. We also, again, we talk about the system change. We have full-time transition coaches and resource developers incorporated into the proposal who will be dedicated to the people who remain at the MDF, because we can't bring everybody, and also at Marsh Creek out in the east end of our county. And this is a very, very important element to our plan. And not only do we have, I talk a lot about the men with mental illness and other issues, but we have a lot of women in our custody who suffer from the exact same thing, and sometimes even worse. And unfortunately, right now, the majority of all of our women are housed, whether they have mental illness or some other special need, they're housed in general population on Building 8 at West County. What this would allow us to do, Building 4 currently houses men. We will move them out, and we will now have a housing unit dedicated to women who have serious and persistent mental illness. And that's something that is extremely important to us as well.
To numbers question, that's apart from the 96 new beds for mental health, is that correct? The women beds that you're talking about for women with persistent mental health?
So the facility itself, with the exception of the new facility, with the exception of the program areas, the housing itself is designed as it configured now for the men. However, the women, we can now dedicate their own. It's in addition to that. It's a separate.
So there would be some additional mental health beds, is what I'm getting at.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
This,
and
but for women.
That building currently exists now. It's just populated with men. We need to depopulate that. Staffing considerations, along with the 400 people that move over, we'll shift 20 existing deputy sheriff positions along with them. Obviously, we're going to need that. We can accomplish that by closing the 2 housing units at the MDF. We'll leverage some existing staff at West County to provide supervision, administrative support, and operational support. We would require 6 additional funded deputy sheriffs and 6 sheriff's aides, which I'll just point out that that is the same staffing number that we came before the board for SB 1022 in 2013 and SB 863 in 2015. We have a robust array of programs and treatment plan, and it does require considerable amount of staff to accomplish what we believe would be measurable and meaningful goals. So we would require additional mental health clinicians, adult education staff, and medical staff are going to be required to expand services. And I mentioned this earlier, existing CBOs and faith-based organizations would be provided greater access. This might be hard to see. So if just for our Office of Rehabilitative and Behavioral Services, there's 26 people that would be required. And not only are they just not located at one facility in West County, we have 9 that would be assigned to Marsh Creek and the MDF. And those would be staffed through the RFP process. We go to competitive bid for high quality NGO through the RFP. We'd require 2 additional teachers through Office of Education, 2 additional mental health practitioners, one being a psychiatrist, and of course the deputy sheriff and sheriff aide that I mentioned earlier. And these are $2017 at $5,050,738. I'm going to spend a minute here. I think from talking to the public, this is one of the biggest issues about the beds. And again, if you look at our daily population at the MDF, or our county in total, you go back 15 years, our average daily population hasn't changed much more than maybe 10 people one way or the other. And if you go to our jail needs assessment and you look towards the future, there's not a measurable change in terms of, there's no statistic that shows in 10 years from now that we're going to require another 400 beds. Our count has been static for a very, very long time, with very slight fluctuations up or down. Not only that, I don't recall what the count of CAF was today, but I believe it was 466. I have 380 on here, but it's a much more than that. We're not getting rid of that. We're proud of our pretrial release program. We're known for it in the state of California. Also, the sheriff's not going to change his progressive cite and release policy. I mentioned the 10-year average daily population, and this is what we're going to do. We want the Board of State and Community Corrections to come into our facility and audit our bed count every year, and the sheriff's prepared to go to the board and present that report to the Board of Supervisors annually. Additionally, I don't know if we have the quote back, Assistant Sheriff, but we just recently reached out to the General Services Department to get us an estimate of what it's going to cost to remove the bunks out of those cells. The metal bunks, they're gone. And almost done, at least for the presentation. The Sheriff's Office is going to form a jail to community collaborative council. And Supervisor Anderson, you had mentioned that right now there's a disconnect between sharing of information with other agencies in the county, whether it be medical or mental health, with the Sheriff's Office. This council is designed to bridge those gaps and improve what it is that we do through working with multiple agencies and nonprofits to improve the outcomes for our incarcerated people. If it's our JNA is read, our application's read, I think we did a really good job according to the state based on how they ranked us with the exception of CEQA, that we have demonstrated we have an urgent need for housing unit replacement. We don't have a need for new beds. We have a need for the right kind of beds, and then we can shut down the beds that we don't need. Again, it's a room replacement project. And I know there's a trust factor that I've listened to people talk about. And we're trying to address that by being as transparent as possible with our plans. And this facility's only purpose is designed to provide people who are returning back to the community with the types of programs and the types of treatment they need. Because the alternative, I get it, we all agree. We had this conversation, my boss, about invest in people, not prisons. And I don't think any one of us up here disagrees with that. We do need to invest in people, but we need to invest in people who are incarcerated now so they don't reoffend, so they don't wind up in prison. And we can address a lot of those needs to fight recidivism in our own county facilities. We can't do it now, but we have a mechanism through Senate Bill 844 that allows us to do that. Because the alternative is we do nothing. And we as a sheriff's office have an obligation to do what's right for these people, and that's exactly what we're trying to do and nothing else than that. And with that, I end my presentation, and whatever comes next, we do.
Thank you very much, Captain. Chair, that concludes our presentation. We just want to let you know we put a lot of thought, a lot of time, a lot of energy into this proposal. We think it is in the best interest of the community and our population in the jails now. And we hope that we can move forward and apply with the state, because we know we have a competitive application. We're not for our CEQA lawsuit, that litigation we were tied up to. We would have had our money already, and we would have been well ahead of the game. Now we're sort of a year behind because of that, but we hope this will move forward and we'll have a successful application.
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation. I think it was very detailed and well thought out. But there's probably questions from my colleagues. Supervisor Joya.
Thanks, and I'll try to be brief on the questions. I know we have a fair amount of people that want to speak, and so we want to hear from them. But just a couple of comments, and I want to start by saying that I don't think anyone here is not acknowledging that there is a need to improve accommodations for those who are incarcerated in Martinez, and for new jail space and for new programming space. I don't think, and I know you've based a lot of the goals of this project on those two things. The question for me, the questions or concerns I have are around whether we are doing it in the most effective, fiscally prudent way to achieve those goals. And I think that's the history that we've had in this county, is to be thoughtful about those things. But I want to start, I have to make an observation, because you talked about transparency and you talked about the CEQA lawsuit. You know, we're looking at a new administration building here in Martinez, and we're working closely with the city of Martinez. When we build a new library in a city, we work closely with the city. The reason that there was a CEQA lawsuit from the city of Richmond, and I talked to the city manager again just last week, is because there was not meaningful dialogue, communication, discussion with the host city. I mean, we do this when we're building a library, when we're building a county administration building, but look, a proposal to transfer 400 high-security beds from Martinez to Richmond, aside from the other issues, deserves, I think, the opportunity to work with and respect the understanding of the host city where this is going to happen. And I think that is why there was a CEQA lawsuit from the city of Richmond, which you refer to as held up the scoring and the reason the county didn't get funded. So my point is that they deserve, and I know there's some representatives from the city of Richmond here today, and again, conferring with the city manager, that dialogue is important, and it didn't happen in a meaningful way. So I needed to make that observation, and I think that's an important part. I mean, just like we all expect, if something's going to happen, the city is going to get consulted and have some discussion, and that didn't happen in a meaningful way. So I do, a couple just questions I have, and again, I'll keep them short for later. That this project is $93.4 million. I know $70 million we're seeking from the state grant. The state requirement is that there be a minimum of 10% local match. We're doing something more like 25%. So we're putting up $25 million instead of $9.5 million, and at a time when we've had our own sort of challenges in funding. So that standpoint, I understand. So concern is the idea of first whether the goal of any project should have been to keep that local match as minimum as possible, which didn't happen here. So it's we're 25 million local match, of which About 15 million's coming out of our general fund reserves, but there's additional amounts as well. And I do have to make reference to the ICE detainment issue. Because, transparency and trust when folks look at a proposal is important. And out of the sheriff's budget, or the sheriff's department spends $226 million a year, approximately, in our most recent budget. And the sheriff's department receives net revenue of about $3 million out of that 226 from the ICE contract. I submit that, especially at this time in this state and in this country, that the cost of having that contract and having up to 200 of those beds, 180, 200 beds filled through that ICE contract, that we pay a price for that by the erosion of public trust in law enforcement institutions by our immigrant communities. And that, I think, so for that $3 million, and I get that that's not, but that $3 million that we get in net revenue, we pay a price for that, and that's the idea that folks don't often have trust in county services because of the perception of cooperation with ICE. And that hurts this proposal as well in terms of the public looking at it. So the proposal also of $2 million for additional sheriff deputies to fund it. And I understand that you're moving some over, and then there's two. This board has always set as its highest priority law enforcement officers in the unincorporated areas, which is our primary law enforcement responsibility, where it's North Richmond, El Sobrante, Bay Point, Rodeo, Discovery Bay. And we've always asked for more funding for those areas, but yet the one time, whenever we get a sort of a request from the sheriff for additional funding for sheriff deputies, it's for sheriff deputies in the jails. And I know we haven't identified the funding, so David, let me have you I think it's important to address the lack of available funding to cover that. So we recently had some new labor contracts with many of our employees, including deputy sheriffs, which are increasing our cost ongoing. So with this additional $2 million in the time period that we're looking at, can you sort of comment about, because I think it's important for us to be aware, what that would take out of, what the sort of current revenue allocated to the Sheriff's Department, and whether this is aligned with that.
Thank you, Supervisor. Basically, just a couple of comments, one of which is this facility would not open until late 2019, early 2020, so it's somewhat difficult to project both the costs as well as the revenue sources. A big chunk of the dollars that we put towards the Sheriff's Department comes from Prop 172, which is sales tax revenues. Right now, we are having a problem because the Prop 172 revenues, according to the governor's latest budget projection, are going to be relatively flat for the next year or two. So given that, yes, there is a problem with the sheriff's budget coming up for the next fiscal year that we meaning this board, will have to address. But again, keep in mind that what we're proposing here, yes, it's going to take about $2.2 million in terms of additional sheriff staffing. But there's also almost $3 million in terms of programming staffing dollars that would go out to the community-based organizations, again with the goal in mind that we're going to provide the services to certainly the mentally ill as well as the severely mentally ill, which is a huge issue for us countywide as well.
Yes, and we've been committing more AB 109 dollars. In fact, we could continue to commit more AB 109 dollars to those services, the $3 million out of the $5 million.
Absolutely,
correct?
That would be basically a policy decision for the board.
Right, but we have not identified the revenue to pay for all of the local increase. This sort of anticipates a $5 million a year increase in cost, and we haven't identified that. It will come from somewhere else.
That is correct. It would either, as a practical matter, either comes from the general fund, the Prop 172, or additional potential grants. Keep in mind that a couple of the things that are happening both with Prop 47.
Well, when I said come from somewhere else, I meant there's not sufficient revenue to pay for this currently.
But right now, remember, because of the changes in both Prop 47 as well as Prop 54, there is indications that there'll be more dollars available on grant basis for mental health purposes.
Correct. I think it's important to say, if we add this to the how much additionally, given the salary increases we're talking about, what's the amount of that with the salary increases to cover the deputy sheriffs and in the sheriff's department?
Actually, the wage and benefit increase for 2017-18 is a little over $16 million.
Right. And my point is that the two on top of the 16 make it more challenging, because that ultimately we have to close that gap, and where are we taking that money from? So if you can just briefly explain the process to bring back beds. There's the other concern that while you're decommissioning some beds from Martinez, I've looked at the sort of regulations of the board of the bureau, state bureau. There's nothing that prevents the county from going back and asking for those beds to get certified again. You would obviously have to staff them, but you could go back and ask the space is there to, if the demand goes back up, to recertify those beds, commission those beds again, and bring them back.
Yeah, as part of this proposal, Supervisor, as stated by the sheriff when he was here last time, he'd certified the count of the beds where it is as outlined in this proposal, and have BSCC come back in and certify that amount of beds going forward, and report back to you in some format, whatever format you wanted, that no beds were added. On top of that, we're actually going to remove the beds from the building. And 20 years from now, could we recertify the beds? Yes, but our commitment is to take the beds out and then go before the board on an annual basis and certify that there's been no increase in capacity.
Right. I think the concern is, and this was expressed last time, right? So it's not a new issue.
Not
is
at all.
that sure, you can take beds out, you can close the space is still there, and you can go back with proper commissioning and reopen it and buy new beds and increase capacity. I think that's really the concern, is that while today there's a transfer of beds, that doesn't mean that those beds can't get reopened in the future and increase capacity by 400.
And the other problem with that, Supervisor, is just as you pointed out, the funding issues. I mean, as you just pointed out, you're concerned with the revenue or the funding to make this project work in years forward. There would have to be quite a spike in funding for us to be able to actually supervise inmates in housing units that have already been closed.
I understand that.
And even under your scenario, I don't think that's something we can...
And I'm not saying all 400. I'm saying incrementally, there's nothing that prevents the sheriff from bringing these back, just like the sheriff has asked for an additional $2 million of money we don't have to hire extra sheriff deputies to sort of staff this. I mean, I'm just saying it happens. We've asked, so there is believe me, you can't bind a future sheriff. A future sheriff could decide to increase capacity. There's been a lot of discussion about also, and this came up with our reentry programs, about the informal cite and release program. And to make acknowledge, we have a better informal cite and release program than most. But as you know, there's also an attempt to develop a more risk-based bail reform system, because we don't have a formal, structured pretrial release program. We have this informal program, and about 70% of the people in our facilities are pretrial. In that range, about 70% are pretrial.
I would agree.
They haven't yet faced adjudication, and so there is an effort by the our reentry program to look at how can we reduce the number of individuals currently incarcerated through a formalized risk reduction, risk-based bail system as opposed to the dollar system. And so there is a belief, that there is room to continue to reduce the jail population under that system that we don't do today because we don't have a formal system.
There is that belief, yes.
Yeah. So I think
I would just like to say, bail reform, I don't know how, we would have to run numbers through a new bail schedule and model what that impact would be. However, you just really, and I know you're aware of this, Supervisor, a lot of people in this county are released on OR.
Yes.
A lot of people are cited initially, and the only people that would really be bailing would people that would not be able to be site released, and that in our county is a smaller population than many other counties.
There is an acknowledgement that we do better than most, but there's also an acknowledgement that we have more room to reduce the jail population through that's why we're investing money as part of a reentry strategy to look at a formal risk-based bail reduction system.
And I would just say, just as we're going to do when we look at our classification system here in the next 6 months to a year to redo that, anything like that, you have to model it against your current population and find out what that reward is before you invest a lot of money in it.
I understand. And finally, because I know we'll wait to speak more after speakers, the getting back to this discussion of how the beds have worked. So the 64 and the 32, it's fair to say, frankly, that the 64 beds are for a population which may include some with mental health needs, some with substance abuse issues, or others that are not mental health. I mean, the number of beds that we focus on for individuals who are seriously mentally ill are 32. And I think, so the question becomes, it's clear your own serious and persistent, given the nature of the beds for those with serious and persistent, this is from your own report, from serious and persistent, I'm saying.
But, and you're ignoring the 64 other beds, and you're ignoring the women.
Right, let me finish my comment, and then the issue becomes the number of those in the 64 category who are lesser, where the investment pre-incarceration would reduce the jail population coming in. So this gets to where we're spending our mental health prevention dollars. If we're spending more of it, taking part of this $3 million on the pre-incarceration side, the need for the mental health services in the jail for that less seriously ill population is reduced because the funds are spent ahead of incarceration. And I think that's the point I'm trying to distinguish between. Is that population, not the 32, but the 64, are exactly the population where if we're spending more of the money pre-incarceration, there's less need to spend the money while they're incarcerated because we've avoided it. I think this notion that the best place to provide mental health services is in the jail. I mean,
no one is saying that, John.
No,
hold on.
Candace, I have my last comment, and then I'm done.
John, yes. If you would wrap up your questions and with the staff. We're not going to do a debate.
Okay, no, right. My point is, and the reason I ask these questions is that the sort of the justification being provided for the size of the project is mental health. And I acknowledge that mental health is an important component, but not justification for the 420 or so beds. That's my point.
Well, and what I will say and again, I want to hear from the people here, is you're ignoring the women who will then have the ability to receive mental health services. You're ignoring the ability of the women to have reunification, touch with their children, which is a significant impact. And I think it goes back to what I was saying initially, is we are not, and no one is suggesting that the best place to treat someone with mental illness is in the jails. And that's why we are taking a very, very comprehensive look, this identification of every intercept we have with someone who is mentally ill to prevent them from being in jail. But once they are there, they are our responsibility. And if we're going to find a way to help these individuals overcome many of their mental health issues, we've got to come up with a completely different system than we currently are. And I think it's also very, very significant that we move forward with not only for the mentally ill, but the other high security prisoners. And Captain Chalk has alluded to it, but we've got people sitting across the street because of their gang affiliation. They're stuck in a little cell, and they're not able to avail themselves to some of the great reentry programs we have. And as he has described, we can't just throw them out in the jail population. It's not going to work. And if we're going to see significant reform and change our recidivism numbers, we need to have effective, efficient programs. So I think it's really essential that we're not just picking and choosing tiny little areas and saying, well, this isn't going to work, this isn't going to work. I mean, this is going to continue to be a very, very comprehensive pre-incarceration. I mean, it goes back to helping our women when they're pregnant to have healthy babies that aren't born with fetal alcohol syndrome, that aren't born addicted to drugs, so that they don't set themselves up to have challenges in life that may bring them in contact with the justice system or have mental health issues. This is one small component that we have one small chance. You know, ironically, had we had the grant, if I'm not mistaken, we would have had $80 million last year. We've got a $10 million gap we have to fill because we had to fight off this CEQA issue.
Because we didn't work with the host city, which
okay,
unfortunately is a significant
okay,
point.
and may I just turn to one of my captains or undersheriffs? How many times did you meet with the city of Richmond?
Last application, we went to Richmond City Council twice. We met with the mayor's office and the city manager in private in the city of Richmond, and we met with every city council in the West End and went over this project. On top of that, I mean, we had numerous community meetings as well.
And the bottom line is we had to agree to disagree. And so it wasn't like we blindsided West County with this project. I think it's really significant.
Meetings occurred after the project was
No.
developed.
Okay,
No,
hold on. Hold on, everyone. We are not going to carry on a dialogue here on the dais. There's information that if there's information that you want answered, then let's direct it as a question. I ask my colleagues, let's be respectful to the staff, let's be respectful to the people who have come and want to make their testimony, and let's not do this back and forth.
No, and I'm sorry. I was asking questions, and I realized that you wanted to comment. And my very direct question was with regard to the outreach that we had with West County. And my other question will be, and I think you also alluded to this, Captain Chalk, is when the West County Detention Facility was originally built back in around 1991 or whenever it was, wasn't this additional area planned? You said it's plumbed, the electricity, the utilities are there. This isn't a brand new concept. We built this jail with this potential expansion in mind, did we not?
Yes, Supervisor, to include an EIR that was completed in the past, which we thought as an effort to be transparent, to refresh, that we did another EIR. We could have simply taken perhaps the old EIR and we would have been done with it.
Yeah, I don't think you can take an EIR from 25 years ago with no expansion.
But it
Let me be.
Okay, you're in
So what I'm saying, Supervisor Joya, is that footprint out there has been designed to accomplish the very thing that we're trying to accomplish today, sir.
I agree.
have no
Let me
further
say,
questions at this
I've been
time.
around since 1992, and I talked to the former supervisor, at that time. There was no commitment of what an expansion would look like in 1992, and that's an unfair characterization to make. There was the construction of this existing jail as a medium security facility, and to assume that a discussion with the city 25 years ago means we're not going to have a meaningful discussion while we're developing the project. So I will.
Supervisor, I respectfully say that's not what the captain said.
And then just the issue of beds. If I'm not mistaken, don't we have a requirement that for 10 years we cannot even consider any expansion of additional beds?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Any of my other colleagues? Okay.
I happened to be working in the sheriff's office when this was planned, and so I respectfully disagree with you, Supervisor Joya. It was always planned for expansion.
So was I, Supervisor.
Yeah, I'm not disputing
Go
that.
on. It's my turn. My turn. Relative to the 420 beds that would be decommissioned, the original MDF was designed for what, 384? Did I hear you say that?
Yes, ma'am.
And it's give or take 660 now? 660 minus 420 is 240, if I got it right? I think I wrote it down. So we're going from 384 down to 240. So the difference between 384 and 240 is 144 beds. Our county's going to continue to grow. I have no problem with those beds needing to be used in the future. So I wanted to get the question on the table and the answer relative to why there may be a need in the future, and we are decommissioning, but that jail was originally planned for 384 people. To CEQA, I respect the position of Supervisor Joya. I'm dealing with an issue now in a city that I represent about having meaningful dialogue. I also agree with Supervisor Anderson that sometimes we have to agree to disagree. Putting that aside, you said that CEQA issues were resolved. I recall a member of the mayor's staff coming here and criticizing the size or the height of windows. Could you please explain to me what got resolved in CEQA relative to what was the issue and now where we're at? Were there any additional changes made to address CEQA issues?
Supervisor, there were no changes made. Ultimately, the city dismissed the lawsuit.
Thank you. And you will disagree with me, John, but I'm going to view that CEQA lawsuit as obstructionist. When we were, what did you say, a half a point below, and we lost 12, and we're losing 80, and now we're up for 70, and we're having to compete where it was. So I have a different perspective, John, and it's very frustrating. I've got other comments. I will save them till after we hear from our public on this, but I just felt we needed to address the bed issue and the CEQA issue. Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Burgers, you have any comments at this time? You don't have to, and we could go to the public.
It'll be really fun.
You know, I'm really excited to have this on my plate the first month of my... I'd like to listen to public comments before I... thank you.
Okay, anything else really burning for our board members before we go up into public hearing? Okay, thank you. Any closing remarks from?
No, that concludes. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We will now start with our public comments. I'm going to call out 3 and have you come and stand in line. I'm going to limit the conversation to 1 minute. So, excuse me. If we're going to be yelling and not maintain respect, we will not put up with it here. I respectfully have heard what you had to say, and we will go under my rule of 1 minute. So, the first speaker will be our Honorable Mayor from San Pablo, Cecilia Valdez. And she will be followed by Antonio Medrano. And he will be followed by...
I have something to pass out. Who should I give this to?
Mr. Chair, could I recommend what we have done in others? There are blank seats up in the front that you call maybe 10 people and they come sit up in the front. I think that will facilitate, and we may end up being able to have more.
Well, they could come up. I will call 10 and...
This really helps audience time-wise. You'd be amazed how much time is lost back and forth if you would just come up if you know your name's going to be called.
Oscar Tan, RN. Andre Deco. Amy Scott. Rochelle Pardue. Margaret Uring. Wendy Collins. And so we'll start with them. Okay. Welcome, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I just want to address the public safety issue that affects our city. Our police department is does community policing. They've worked very hard to obtain the trust of our residents, working with our immigrant community policing, our police department does not cooperate with ICE. It recognizes the enforcement of immigration law is a federal matter and as a stewards of the taxpayers' money, it is not the role of city government to participate in this enforcement. So I oppose the expansion of the jail because it sends the wrong message to our residents. We've worked very hard to obtain their trust. We have a very safe city. We, at one time, and in 2014, we were acknowledged as one of the top 10 cities in the U.S. One of the reasons was our public safety work. And I submit that on the beds, if you do not have ICE detainees, that's 290 beds that could be used for your mental health services. And I want to say to Captain Chalk, you did not speak to me about this on your CEQA. I had never had a conversation with you. I don't know who you spoke to in San Pablo. It's in our backyard, and we should have been contacted. So I'm afraid that wasn't a true statement that you made. And I want to thank you. I want to thank Supervisor Mishaw for disclosing that she at one time was a Sheriff's Department employee. Thank you.
Antonio Medrano from West County. I live literally 4 minutes from the West County Detention Facility. We go there every first Saturday to do a demo in defense of the undocumented housed in the facility. My question is, all this money, why can't it be spent before we jail somebody? The mental health care, that's where the money should be spent. Also, we have serious concerns, the ACLU of Northern California, that the probation department did a sting with ICE in a county facility. What happened there? And you want people to have faith in the probation department and they cooperated with ICE and they arrested somebody? That's a failure of obeying the law. Hopefully all this will be settled once California and our state legislature and our Senate passes SB 54 from De Leon, the California Values Act, which will say no cooperation throughout the state with ICE. Empty the beds and you have more space there. Gracias.
Thank you. Stan.
Hi, my name is Mari Carr, and I'm a registered nurse working for almost 8 years in Contra Costa Regional Medical Center. I do not have slides. We do not have slides, but we have the people. I am here in behalf of the registered nurses, in behalf of the diverse community and our patients, and our union, California Nurses Association. In our hospital, in the emergency room, with the continuous influx of patients coming from all over the county since the closure of the Doctors Medical Center, our patients who needed to be admitted had to stay there for 1 to 3 days before they get a room. Why can't we spend money to expand our healthcare facility? In labor and delivery, recently we had a patient. In labor and delivery, it remains to be an unlocked facility. Recently, we had a psychiatric patient who was discharged, and this patient went directly to labor and delivery, putting our mothers and our babies at risk. Why cannot we make the labor and delivery a locked facility?
Thank you.
Okay, we say no to the expansion of the jail system. We say yes for investment, for our health care, for our housing, jobs, and school. Thank you.
And
good morning. My name is Amy Scott Slovic, and I'm an RN in this county for close to 20 years. I'm a proud member of California Nurses Association, and I'm here to speak out against the jail expansion. The sheriff has tried to justify this expansion, calling it an investment in mental health, despite only 25% of proposed new space being dedicated for any programming or treatment and no guarantee of funding to that. According to the Contra Costa County Jail Needs Assessment in August 2015, 72% of this county's detainees are people of color. The California average is 52%. Contra Costa County should be working to create a more just community, not perpetuating the current approach to policing and detention that disproportionately targets people of color. Communities of color in Contra Costa County deserve more opportunities for mental health and chemical dependency treatment and preventative care outside of a detention facility. Getting arrested should not be the first step for those in need to receive treatment. And it's not, mental health care is a health care issue, not just a criminal justice problem. So we need to start up front of that. And this large amount of money it doesn't even touch what needs to happen with mental health, and it lets people have records before they get the help they need.
Andrew Datko.
CNA, I'd like to cede my time to Rochelle.
No, we're not doing that. So you're welcome to do your 2 minutes. Sure. 1 minute. I'm sorry.
I'm Andrew Datko. I'm a labor representative with the California Nurses Association for the nurses who work for Contra Costa County. You're going to hear a lot more from our colleagues about why mental health services should be delivered outside of an incarcerated facility. This is an incredibly expensive Band-Aid for problems that manifest themselves well outside the walls of any detention facility in this county. We should be investing this money in the education, in the health care of our community, in preventative services. This is an opportunity to think strategically and thoughtfully about what the needs of the community are. In addition, we represent nurses who work inside these detention facilities. There are serious concerns about our ability to deliver the medical services that are needed with the current staffing, and the security risks that our nurses are put in, along with our patients while they're in these clinics, is something that needs to be addressed. I know a number of you have heard directly from those nurses, but this is a wrong investment to make. Thank you.
Thank you. Rochelle? And Margaret will be following her.
Hello, my name is Rochelle Pardue Okimoto. I'm a city council member for El Cerrito and a member of the California Nurses Association. I'm here today because I was here before, and I'm here again, saying that we have a lack of a hospital in West County. When doctors closed, we lost a real asset. Currently, if you are pregnant with 25-week twins and you want to deliver early, or should I say you don't want to deliver early, you're going to be taken in an ambulance to Alta Bates Hospital. Well, hopefully that ambulance doesn't get in a car crash on the way, because if you do, you're going to have to get with your broken bones and body airlifted all the way to John Muir, or hopefully make it to Highland Hospital. If we have money to invest in jails, we should have money to invest in hospitals. With the Affordable Care Act going away, the county is going to be accountable to providing health care to many more people. The bill is going to get bigger, not smaller, and that will affect people in the other side, in East County and Central County as well. Please use your dollars responsibly. You do not have the money to do this, and we don't want it in West County. Thank you.
Margaret? She will be followed by Wendy Collins.
Good afternoon. My name is Margaret Ewing. I'm a registered nurse in labor and delivery at Contra Costa Regional. I am so grateful to have had this job for so many years. I understand that people here really want the same thing, which is better health for the county, for the citizens of our county. I'm also a resident of the county. In labor and delivery, I get to see many, many families, and when at their strongest. They're full of hope, they're full of promise, they're working together, and I see the challenges that they face. Many of them are incarcerated, they have chronic illness. They're an incredibly diverse population, and I know what they're going to face out in the community, and I just really hope, we all want healthier residents of our county, that the money goes to preventative care, keeping people out of jail, and serving the people in jail as best we can. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask the following people to come to the front, and we will start. She can come right to the speaker stand. Kathleen Sullivan. She will be followed by Jenny Zantella, Blanca Ritano, Phil Arnold, Julia Thompson,
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Are you done? Kathleen Sullivan, President of the Black Women Organized for Political Action, Richmond Contra Costa Chapter. Again, I'm here again, as was the last time we had this conversation, and it's really interesting to see this battling conversation about who do we really want to be. What do we really want to look like? And I hate to see that we have this challenge that seems to be around this expansion of jail facilities, the creating better quality of jail facilities, and we're clearly dealing with the understanding that we have our healthcare system that is so broken and that we could have supported it, and we still can. So I am definitely in opposition to us investing any more money in a system that we have the intelligence, the capacity, and programming in the pipeline to reduce this pipeline, not expand it. We have the intelligence to go on and, is that me?
Go
the
ahead,
intelligence to go on and to decide that we want to be a better community than this, and we want to support our families in a different way. Thank you.
Thank you. Next was Wendy Collins. Phil Arnold.
Good morning. I'm Phil Arnold. I'm a board member of the Inmate Welfare Fund, where I've served for 8 years now. The primary focus by my serving is to make sure that families stay whole. When someone has mental illness, whether they're incarcerated or not, the family is broken, fractured, and the little ones pay the price. Rutherford B. Hayes said, one of the tests of civilization of people is the treatment of its criminals. I encourage you to understand that we have people that are incarcerated that can't give their 1-minute speech here today to ask for help.
Thank you. Julie Thompson. Followed by Wendy Collins, if she's here.
Hi, thank you for your attention. My name is Julia Thompson. I'm a nurse practitioner at San Francisco General Hospital, but I've been a longtime resident, over 30 years, of Contra Costa County. I am here today because, to reiterate a lot of what my colleagues have said, I take care of patients with mental health illness, and I would love to see them get help before they ever encounter the penal system. And if this facility were a school or a mental health facility or a community center, I would be gung-ho in support of it. However, to put all of this resources and money towards programs after people have already encountered the criminal system, when they already have a mark against them, where they could never, very difficult for them to reintegrate into the community, it's a shame. It really is a shame. I would love to see all of those programs that you mentioned that were so beautiful and wonderful being done in the community before they ever get to jail. I wish that it were different.
Thank you. Jenny, is Jenny still here? Followed by Blanca. Is Blanca still here? Okay.
Good morning.
Okay.
My
thank
name
you.
is Jenny. I live in San Pablo.
Can
I
you
appear today.
pull the mic down? So There you go.
Okay. My name is Jenny, and I live in San Pablo. I am here today to urge you to vote no to expanding the West County Detention Facility. The expansion will cost millions of dollars at a time when we are facing huge federal cuts to health care and other services. We can't afford to spend more money on expanding the jail. We don't need more people in jail. We urge you to invest in our community, our children, seniors, jobs, education, health care, mental health facilities, services to help people stay out of jail, and for housing and our homelessness need help too. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy? Okay, Blanca? Wendy Collins not here, right?
I'm going to be translating for Blanca, so I request that we have more than 1 minute. Thank you.
And your name is?
My name is Edith Pastrano.
Mi nombre es Blanca Retano y soy miembro de ACE y estoy aquí porque estoy frustrada en la escuela de mi hijo. No tenemos maestros y eso es un problema para mí como padre y para mi hijo, porque eso es muy frustrante porque tiene uno mucho estrés y los niños no aprenden.
My name is Blanca Retano. I'm an ACE member, and I'm here because I'm frustrated that I have a child in school who is suffering from not being able to learn or capture enough of what he's being taught because the schools are really crowded and there's too many students in one classroom for one teacher.
Y no tenemos muchos salones y no tenemos como cosas donde juegan los niños. Necesitamos más deportes para los niños porque no tenemos muchos salones, están todos juntos. Muchos grados.
Besides the fact that these schools are really crowded, there isn't enough programs for students or for youth to be involved in sports or anything that's extracurricular.
Y no apoyo a que hagan más cárceles porque necesitaríamos un programa como para los padres, para cómo combatir el estrés y que los hijos estén saludables.
And I do not support the jail expansion because as a frustrated parent, we need services that help parents to deal with stress and also to help our students also learn.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Javanka, she's still here? Okay. And she will be followed by Jerry Esther.
Good morning, Javanka Beckles, Vice Mayor, City of Richmond, also a mental health specialist for the Contra Costa County. I'm going to have to go off script a little bit because I came here to discuss the whole mental health piece, but it appears to me that mental health is simply a smokescreen that's being used to expand the jails. It seems to me that Supervisor Mitchoff and Supervisor Anderson really loves the idea of this, and I recommend that since it's such a wonderful and fabulous idea that we put it in your cities. We put it in Danville and Walnut Creek rather than a city of color. Also, the City of Richmond last year voted to oppose this, and as you can see just from the applause, Richmond community does not want expanded jails. What we want is mental health services for the community prior to incarceration. What we want are in-house, inpatient mental health services. What we want, rather than expanding and investing in jails, we want expansion and in investment in schools. We want investments in mental health services, and we want investment in hospitals. It is a shame because mental health is is ideal. It's necessary. But this plan was already brought forward so many times before, and I find it interesting that that's the thing with mass incarceration. The system of mass incarceration is that it tends to try to masquerade as other things than what it really is. And what it really is mass incarceration in effect, and we do not want that in West County.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question, Mr. Glover? One quick. Vice Mayor Beckles, just one quick question. I know because you were involved the last time this came up. When I made my comment that there was not early meaningful discussions with the city of Richmond as this was being developed, I just want you to because there's this, I want to be clear on what the facts are here, because having been around at this last proposal, there was not a meaningful early discussion with the city of Richmond.
No, and I meant to also say that that was not a factual statement. I've been on the council for the last 7 years, and I do not remember any kind of conversation with our city council members.
It came to the council after the proposal had been out and proposed.
Correct.
Thank
Correct.
you.
And the city and the council were in clear opposition of that once it did finally come. But it didn't come as a collaborative partnership. It came as, this is what we want to do in your city, so take it.
Okay, thank you. Jerry?
I was prepared to say good morning, but good afternoon. My name is Jerry Elster. I'm the Community Connections Manager for Rubicon. I'm a homeowner and a taxpaying citizen of Richmond. The sheriff is not getting the message. We did not allocate money for AB 109 to expand this jail. For Prop 47, the funding we got there, we didn't allocate it to fund this jail because we don't want a jail. You brag about having a lowering your jail population. What do you think you said, 700 to 700? Well, we really wanted to say 0, right? We need to be thinking differently in these times. We should be talking about now jobs that lead to equitable social economical status, which is a proven fact that people who make a fair and equitable living expense tend to be a drop in crime.
Thank you.
Overall, what I'm trying to say is, man, we should be moving more toward mental health, and all those things should be offered like the previous people spoke before going to jail, not going to jail. The message should not be, if you have a problem, go to jail and we'll deal with it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, the next speakers we have is Emily Bermudez, Armando Martinez, Gabriel Hanlon, Tamisha Walker.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Emelia. Venimos de Richmond con el grupo ACE. Estamos aquí pidiendo más maestros, como todos sabemos, más clínicas, doctores, más ayuda para los jóvenes, talleres que los preparen para que no haya más tanta flojera en las calles. Entonces, eso pido.
My name is Emilia Bermudez. I'm an ACE member, and I'm here coming from Richmond to ask that we need more. We need better schools. We need more teachers. We need more youth programs to keep kids off of the streets, and we also need a lot of other services.
No necesitamos más cárceles. Lo que necesitamos es más ayuda para la familia.
We do not need any more jails. We need help for families.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary?
Gabriel Holland. Before I begin, I wanted to ask if Supervisor Joya, I had asked him to enter into the record NAMI's position on jails.
I'll read it later during my comments.
Yeah, it's just
yes,
it completely contradicts what has been said about what Stepping Up Initiative's position is, which is to eliminate people from jails. And so I just wanted to make sure it's in the record, because it actually is off their website, and it doesn't say they support diversion, not jails, and to use it as cover, it seems to me not only problematic but disturbing. In fact, so my name is Gabriel Holland. I'm with SEIU 1021, and we're here to oppose the jail. AB 109 at its core says that rehab doesn't happen in jail, never has, never will. Building a new jail will forever stain Richmond. It is both shocking and sad to see mental health used as a political cover to support 32 beds being created, when there are, and as we, if you really look into NAMI's position, they say diversion, community diversion is the answer. There are locked residential facilities for those that commit crimes that are mental health facilities, not jails. So there are plenty of programs out there that NAMI does support, and this is not one of them. And to suggest otherwise is shocking and sad.
Thank you.
I do want to also point out that counties across the state are making this choice between jailhouse asylums and diversion programs. And states like Alabama choose jailhouse asylums,
Gabriel, your
but
time is up.
not California.
Thank you.
Hello, supervisors. My name is Tamisha Walker. I am a resident of Antioch, and I am also the director of the Safe Return Project. And I don't have any notes or any great statistics, but what I do know is that I voted for Diane Burgess, right? And I was hoping that she would not be on the payroll for police or the sheriff, because I cannot stand to have anybody else represent me and my community who doesn't really have a concern about what we should have, right? I think that I'm really concerned that none of you really know what you're doing. That's what I'm concerned about as a resident. I think, Ms. Anderson, you have no idea what you're talking about women being incarcerated until you have actually been an incarcerated woman like I have. You do not represent us. You represent classism. You do not represent us. And I think what you need to do is you need to figure out a better way to represent your people other than continuing to do things that we tell you we do not want, because trust me, your seats will be up, and I organize, and you will be out of here as quick as we could draw a pen to vote.
Harry Baker, and please do not make your comments personal.
In that regard, Mr. Chair, I just want to point out to the audience that Supervisor Anderson sits on our Mental Health Commission and has devoted, and I used to sit on it, and I want to tell you that Supervisor Anderson has been able to devote many more hours than I ever was, and is very concerned about the mental health community. And I think it's very unfair to put titles on, ma'am, that has nothing to do with that. No, ma'am, I'm not going to. Anyway, I want people to know that Supervisor Anderson is a very valued member of the Mental Health Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And I will be making some additional comments, but thank you for your kind remarks.
And let me say, while I may disagree with Supervisor Anderson on this issue, I respect her integrity and understanding in looking at these issues. We can often come from different perspectives, even when there's and have disagreement and still work together.
Okay. Harry?
Supervisors, my name is Harry Baker. I live in Pleasant Hill. The West County expansion, the request for scarce county dollars, forces us into a position where we have to look at conflicting values. $20 million of scarce county funds would go to the project for construction, $5 million more for ongoing support. One program that comes to mind is Contra Costa Cares, a great program the county started in 2015 to provide health care services to undocumented people living in our county. That program is tragically underfunded. Only 3,000 from 20,000 to maybe 30,000 undocumented people living in the county have access to health care. The issue of ICE beds.
Thank you.
All right. All right, I'll just leave it at that. But I would say, our values need, I say that we need to have services, education, health care, and not expand our jails.
Thank you.
Very much.
Armando Martinez. Eduardo.
Probably Eduardo. I'm going to start calling you Armando.
Okay, Eduardo Martinez, I'm a council member, but I'm representing myself as a community member. The issue of the West County expansion has been brought before the West County community, and we, along with the city of Richmond, rejected that proposal. Nothing has changed. Data still maintains that support services outside of incarceration reduces the number of people returning. Our community still supports the efforts of the many community organizations that ensure our returnees do not return and, in fact, have a safe return in our communities. These organizations need more funds to do their jobs. Instead of spending millions to incarcerate, we need to use the money to liberate. And the place to do that is outside the walls that separate individuals from the community that they are trying to embrace. Do not adopt this resolution. If I were to tweet this in the style of our Donald Trump, I would probably write, adopting this would be despicable representation of the will of the people. Sad, truly sad.
Thank you. Melvin Willis. Melvin Willis. Melissa Crosby. Nancy Yarbona. Kristen Laughlin. Okay.
Melvin Willis here with ACE and a Richmond City Council member. I'm here with everybody else. I'm here to reject this idea of expanding the jail. I've been hearing a lot of things about all the wonderful programs and services that are going to be provided within the jail, but all these wonderful programs and services are desperately needed in our communities today. We have a homeless issue. We don't have enough mental health programs. We don't have enough social service programs. We don't have enough programs for youth and everything. And these are the issues in our community that get people in prison to begin with, because there's not enough resources for people to thrive in our community, so they turn to survival instinct and commit crimes just so they can get by to their day-to-day lives. Next thing you know, they're incarcerated, locked up, don't know where they're going to go or what they're going to do. And then when they get back out into the community, they are discriminated against time and time again because of their past mistakes. Jail expansion is not the answer to a sustainable community. When you are locking people up, the only thing that you are doing is putting the trash in the closet, but eventually that closet door is going to open and come down and create a mess. If you really want to create a safer community, we have to deal with the root cause and the issues. And one more comment, real quick. Supervisor Glover, from one black person living in this county to another, we are 9% of Contra Costa's population. But we're 47% of the criminal justice cases. How is that right? We are disproportionately targeted in this community. Our criminal justice system is broken, and we need to fix it before we even talk about expanding any jails. And to the rest of us public officials, we are elected to represent the public. Our personal feelings come in second to the people that we need to represent out there. Things like this. These are people that need our help and our resources, not a jail expansion. So please reject this proposal immediately. Thank you.
Melissa Crosby. Melissa Crosby. Melissa's not here. Nancy. Nancy. Okay. Welcome.
Welcome. Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Nancy Ibarra. I'm a community organizer in the city of Richmond, and I am against the jail expansion as well. As a person who has a brother currently incarcerated with a mental illness, I know that him being incarcerated is not making him better. You put a person in solitary confinement in prison, what do you think that's going to do for them? Services or not, what do you think that's going to do for them? You tell me. I'm against all of that. We need resources, we need help, in our communities. Without resources, without any help, what you think we're going to do? You think we're going to ask? We tired of asking. We've been asking forever. I'm upset. We all are upset. And as leaders, please reject this proposal. Be on our side.
Thank you. Is Miss Laughlin still here? Laughlin? No? Oh. She will be followed by Bob Lane and Lulu Riley.
My name is Christy Laughlin, and I'm with the Faith Alliance for a Moral Economy and eBase. And I feel compelled to first make a comment about your process and cutting the time in half for all the community who've waited hours to address you. And what it feels like is that you are not choosing to listen to us. And what it feels like is you are not accountable to us. And it feels like the 1 minute is a charade that you are indulging. And I would ask that you restore more time for us to speak and share our opinions with you. And on that note, this is the third time that faith leaders and faith communities and community folks have mobilized in 5 years to say no. It's the same old proposal, time and time again. This does not feel like you're listening to us. And let's be real. In the days after the Trump election, stocks soared for Geo Group and CCA and companies that invest in incarceration. And let's speak some truth that this is a profiteering endeavor. They're making $3 million off a year off the ICE contract.
Thank you.
So if you really want us to trust you and trust that you care about people and not profits, start by listening to us and coming back with a different proposal that's about investing in the community before incarceration. Thank you.
And when we talk about process, let's respect the process. Bob Lane.
Yes, I'm Bob Lane. I'm also with the Faith Alliance for a Moral Economy. For another law enforcement perspective, please read the National Sheriff's Association 2014 report on the treatment of persons with mental illness in jails. The first thing the report does is acknowledges that sheriffs are, quote, neither equipped nor trained to provide mental health services in jails. That the ultimate solution is a functioning public mental health treatment system in the community so that people don't end up in jails. And they make a number of recommendations to bring that about to support community treatment. One of the most important that's being completely ignored is to encourage cost comparisons between what's it going to cost in jail to deliver treatment and what's it going to cost in the community. Because after you spend the $25 million and the $5 million every year in perpetuity on your jail, we both know there's not going to be anything left over for mental health treatment in the community, and that's a loss to the community.
Thank you. Lulu Riley.
I like Lulu. I think I might change my name. So it's actually Lucy Riley, and I'm a 25-year ICU veteran living in Richmond, California for the last 10 years, and I work in both Walnut Creek Kaiser Hospital, and I work in Oakland as well at a Sutter facility. I was privileged to be asked as a representative for the Bernie Sanders campaign to come and speak before 12,000 women at the Women's March in Walnut Creek. And the reason I was asked is because this Southern accent has lived many years in Louisiana, and mass incarceration is an issue that I have fought all the way from Angola prison to San Quentin. The jury is in. What I hold before me is a book called The New Jim Crow that is a statistical analysis of mass incarceration in America. It has been an epic failure. 3 decades of mandatory minimums and tough on crime legislation has led to 25% of prisoners in the world incarcerated here in America. And as the #1 Bernie delegate from CD11, and I got more votes out in East County than I did in my hometown of Richmond, let me tell you, voting for a jail expansion is hanging political kryptonite around your neck, and I stand behind that statement.
Thank you. Lindsay Gore, followed by Juan Lozano.
Not Reardon.
My name is Lizzie Gore, and I've been a full-time teacher in West Contra Costa for the last 8 years. And I don't know any of you gentlemen from the sheriff, but I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and assume you're trying to do your job well. I know what it feels like to not have the space to provide the mental health services that you need to provide. I see it every single day. I know a 9-year-old boy who is already a high-risk youth and is threatening to fight his peers because he comes home every day to a family struggling with alcoholism and addiction. I know that community-based health services work because I see them work with the kids who get them, and with the kids who don't, I see them fall through the cracks, and I see them end up with you 10 years later. If you want me to go back to my school and tell those kids they can wait 10 years until they're arrested and incarcerated to get the services they need, I'll do that. But their parents and their siblings are registered voters and are ready to organize. And I will second what Lulu said about political kryptonite.
Claudia Jimenez. Claudia Jimenez. Did I call a name of someone who? And then Juan Lozano. And David Brazil will be after Juan.
Good afternoon, all of you. This is not my first time, and this is not the first time of many members in the community to stand here and say no to jail expansion and yes to services. Sheriff David Livingstone has tried to expand the West Contra Costa Jail many times. In 2012, using AB 109 money, in 2013, in 2015, and today, and last week, and we will continue, right? And the last two proposals, he didn't use mental health. He just used jail expansion. So now he's using mental health, as everybody's saying, as a cover to expand the jail. At this time, when we don't know what costs the county will be facing with this administration, it's irresponsible to commit general funds to go to the sheriff's department for a jail expansion. Our communities are afraid. We heard from some of you that you don't support the sanctuary county because you don't know what the cut from the federal government will be. But you are ready today.
Thank you.
To say yes to commit funds to a jail expansion and to say to and award the Sheriff Livingstone to implement Trump's agenda by collaborating with ICE. This is not acceptable, and this is not fiscal responsible for the county and for your leadership. You are telling us, if you say yes, that you are supporting Trump's agenda in our county. Thank you.
Time's up. Juan Lozano, followed by David Brazil.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Juan José Lozano, soy de la ciudad de Richmond y gracias por escucharme. Estamos en una agrupación donde ayudamos a jóvenes a salir de la drogadicción, del alcoholismo y también de los que se quieren quitar la vida o depresión.
Hello, everyone. My name is Juan Jose Lozano. I'm a Richmond resident ACE member, and I'm actually part of a organization that is helping youth to try to recover from alcoholism, addiction, and committing suicide.
Necesitamos a veces los recursos que nos muevan o un lugar donde establecer a los jóvenes, a sus reuniones, sus juntas, donde se desahogan ellos de su depresión, de lo que traen, y necesitamos a veces necesitamos que es la juventud, es el futuro de nuestras comunidades de aquí de Estados Unidos, nuestros jóvenes, el futuro que venga adelante.
We are struggling to find locations to hold our meetings, and sometimes we think that if we had more funding to figure out where we can have a solid place to meet and have youth be able to talk about what they're going through and the stresses that they're living in their lives, would be great to have that kind of funding for this type of engagement in the community. The youth is the future of this world that we're living in, and we need to be investing in them.
Muchas gracias y que Dios los bendiga.
Thank you very much, and may God bless all of you.
Thank you. David Brazil, followed by Juan Reardon.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is David Brazil. I am with the Faith Alliance for a Moral Economy, and I'm also a Christian pastor. I work with faith communities throughout Alameda and Contra Costa County. And those communities, like the nurses, like everybody we've heard today pretty much, is for services before incarceration. That's what I'm for, too. You've heard it from everybody. In fact, every public comment that we've heard today has been against this project, which I would urge you to recognize. We've also heard a lot of passion, including passion from the African American community. And the reason we hear that passion is because that community is disproportionately affected by mass incarceration. As my colleague raised, Lucy, mass incarceration is the new Jim Crow. And that's the language that we stand on, and we understand this as a historical phenomenon in this country. In this moment of our country's history, we also have a new pharaoh. Many of us understand that in this time, the question for us is, which side are we on? We don't get to waffle anymore. We're either with death and discrimination, or we're with health, help, and hope. And as a Christian pastor, I reach to Matthew 25, and Christ invites us to recognize that there will be a separation of the sheep and the goats, and it will depend on what you have done for the least of these. So what have we done? What will you have done for the least of these? Thank you.
Thank you. Juan.
Good afternoon. I'm Juan Reardon. I'm a retired employee of Contra Costa County Health Services and Public Health Division, where I served 25 years. I'm also a member of the Richmond Progressive Alliance, and I'm here to express my strongest opposition to this initiative of expanding the West County Detention Facility. There's an old saying, build it and they will come. Well, I say that what they really have in mind is build it and they will rent it to ICE. They will... Expanding this facility will facilitate the aggressive, repressive policies of Mr. Trump. Already, without that perspective, every year, 1,000 families suffer mental health traumas by having their family member detained by ICE in that place. You are making this easier for them, and we say in Contra Costa County, no Trump policies here, no jail, not in Contra Costa.
Dwayne Chapman, did he leave? Oh,
Dwayne is here, chair of our Mental Health Commission.
Sean Casey's still here.
I'm Dwayne Chapman. I'm the chair of the Mental Health Commission. That's right. And our commission voted to support this, but with the understanding of treatment, that treatment came first. Last night, I sat outside of Sutter Hospital, where my sister is, and she's dying. She's spent 20 to 30 years on drugs and can't stop, couldn't stop. She's been in and out of jail, in and out of the county jail, with no services. And I look at where she's at today, And I say, damn it, you do, or damn it, you don't. But you got to do something to start saving lives, because lives have been dying for a number of years.
And before you leave, Dwayne, I do want to just have you, we did receive a letter. It was unanimous from the Mental Health Commission that they saw this as one tool among many, many others to treat the mentally ill people in our community. Is that not correct? And it's not, and Mental Health Commission, is it not true? We recognized this isn't where we want people to be treated. We've got Laura's Law, we've got other programs. Yes, we want to keep people out of jail, particularly those who are mentally ill, but if they do end up in jail, we want them to have the right treatment while they are there. Is that an accurate assessment?
That is a very accurate assessment. And the one other thing that's missing is that the commission, several of our commissioners went there to the jail and saw the condition of what people had to go through. Mental health people. And when one gentleman, one of the commissioners said to me, he ate off the top of a garbage can. I said, we got something wrong. You're right, the sheriffs, they don't have the skills to treat mental health. They don't. Why are we giving it to them? We have mental health treatment. We have a behavioral health, mental health treatment that we need to put not only in there, but also boost our prevention so that our children don't go through the same thing my sister went through.
Agreed.
And can I make a comment, or do you want me to? I'll wait till the end. Okay.
Sean Casey. Oh, probably another.
Good afternoon. I'm Sean Casey. I'm the Executive Director of First Five Contra Costa. I have been joined this morning with several of our resident members of our regional groups, and I'm afraid all of them had to leave. Some of my staff is here as well, but these folks have been working diligently in their communities across the county and felt they wanted to be here today to witness this discussion as well. I could not let this opportunity to go by without pointing out that much of what is being discussed today starts in the very earliest years of life. And that's what First Five is all about, of course. The research is very strong on this. Every investment of every dollar in high-quality programs in the first years reaps anywhere from $7 to $17 later on in public savings, including incarceration, and also in things like people getting better jobs and paying more taxes. Just last night, we presented to our commission the findings from our first kindergarten readiness assessment, and I'll just point out that only 1/3 of kids entering the kindergartens in the schools we assessed are ready for kindergarten. The need for public investment in this area is enormous. Thank you so much.
Okay, the next lineup of speakers will be Maria Alegria, Ditto Clark, Nancy Kelly, Jim Fawley.
Good afternoon, Honorable Board of Supervisors. I will try to stick to my script. I just want to let you know that this is an issue that is passionate for me. I was here in 1991 fighting Sheriff Rainey's proposal to contract with INS, and here I am 25 years later. We still have Martinez that's overcrowded, and we have an ICE contract under the leadership of Sheriff Livingston. I want to share with you that we had bonds that paid for the overcrowding, to pay for the West County Detention Facility that was to deal with the overcrowding in Martinez. It's still overcrowded. We paid the folks who voted for those bonds voted to alleviate the overcrowding, not for an ICE detention facility. I secondly want to say that this application is disingenuous. It says nothing about the ICE contract that the sheriff currently has. And does he really want that facility open so he can contract 1,100 beds to ICE? And what are we going to do next? He's going to be here before you deputizing sheriffs to be ICE agents? No, reject this expansion today. Thank you. And here's a letter. And actually a copy of the board resolution that was passed in 1988 that talked about the jail expansion.
Followed by Nancy Kelly. Lauren Regatta.
I am Contra Costa County Democratic Party Secretary Ditto Clark with historical perspective. Almost 50 years ago, the county sheriff asked the Board of Supervisors to replace the old county jail, which is across the street, with a maximum security mini San Quentin with walls of steel and concrete 1 foot thick. With 6 prisoners per cell and no windows. The Board of Supervisors voted to build the sheriff's mini San Quentin. Contra Costa civic groups and residents objected and asked for a medium security jail with windows and 1 person per cell, built pursuant to federal guidelines, a model jail. Opposition to the sheriff's mini San Quentin grew like a tsunami. The supervisors got the message, changed their votes, and built the jail the people demanded.
Thank you.
Now please listen.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next speaker is Nancy Kelly.
I'm here on behalf of the Unitarian Universalist Church located in Kensington. I'm the chair of the Social Justice Council, and we urge you to oppose this poorly written proposal. This is the second time I've been here. I am a prior public defender and a deputy county counsel who did the mental health calendar. I am very familiar with issues of incarceration and mental illness, and for the last 30 years, we have been locking up mentally ill people rather than providing services to them. This is a continuation of that. There is no mental health in a cage. We need services outside and prior, and we don't need to be locking up mentally ill people. Close to 80% of the people incarcerated locally are waiting for trial or adjudication. They are not going to be providing services, and this county could do more. The state of New Jersey and New York Times today has a statewide program that eliminates bail. We should be doing this here and reducing the jail population.
Thank you. Is Lauren here?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here today as a mother of someone who has spent a lot of time in the Martinez jail. What happens when we don't give law enforcement and health personnel the resources to do their job? It's the hell of M&D modules. M module is the area that now houses both male and female inmates who are seriously mentally ill. It passes one standard, and this is the standard set in the UN Charter for prisons that are considered a torturous environment. The sheriff is asking that the people of Contra Costa simply give him the resources to do the job. We need the $70 million of our tax money to flow back into our community so that we can practice restorative justice. This is not a request to expand the jail capacity. It is a yes to health services for those who are incarcerated. Anyone who opposes this grant cannot have stepped foot in M module. It is a harmful, torturous place to be, And the people who care and serve our people in the M&D modules need better. I wish we were here being offered $70 million by the state to expand our health care services, but we're not. We're being offered to get $70 million of our tax money back and to place it in good, so that we have a good and decent detention facility. Thank you for letting me go over time.
Thank you. Jim Foley. Followed
My name
by
is
Peggy Kell.
My name is Jim Foley. I'm an assistant business manager with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers right here in Martinez. I stand before you today to voice support for the West County Treatment Housing Facilities Project. The subject of mental illness is obviously on the front page of every newspaper and in this room. Before you is a good project that will help address the issues of mental health in the population of incarcerated people. To continue the valiant effort of those who work in the field every day, we must give them, these dedicated professionals, more and better facilities. A project like this will give mental health professionals the tools and space they need to do their work safely and efficiently. It is often said that a craftsman is only as good as his or her tools. You can be the best at your craft, but if you don't have all the necessary tools, your product will suffer. People in these facilities have issues that need to be handled by those experts or craftsmen who have a good set of tools, but they need more. We support the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Peggy? Is Peggy here? Okay, Lee Lawrence. Rita Xavier will be next.
Okay. I'm Lee Lawrence, Action Chair of the League of Women Voters of Diablo Valley, and I'm glad that Rita Xavier will be here speaking for the League of Women Voters of West Contra Costa County. We both have voted to oppose the expansion of the jail. Current thinking in criminal justice opposes mass incarceration, which is found to be expensive and ineffective. In Europe, they are closing prisons. The Netherlands just announced the closing of 19 prisons. The current recidivism rate in Contra Costa jails is 72%, and it costs over $60,000 per year per person. That's not success. We note with interest the new focus on electronic monitoring, which costs approximately $1,000 per person, saves $24,000 per person with a greatly reduced recidivism rate of under 20%. We also strongly support mental health services, and I'm glad to hear the united support for services both for mental health and for women here, but we suggest they be provided outside of prison. Thank you.
Rita?
I'm Rita Xavier, President of the League of Women Voters, West Contra Costa County, and we oppose the West County Detention Facility expansion. It would create more beds for ICE detainees, and we ask that you please stop the expansion of the facility and to eliminate the ICE contract, which sends the wrong message to residents in our county in these trying times. There are so many that are struggling now, and you've heard all morning about that. The money could be better used elsewhere, as there are so many needs that are underfunded for our people. And the League of Women Voters of the United States encourages exploring alternatives to incarceration. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Matko from Antioch. No? Zuleika? Okay. Followed by Rita Brock.
Good afternoon. My name is Zuleika Godinez. I'm with the Ensuring Opportunity Campaign, a county-wide cross-sector initiative to end poverty in Contra Costa. Our justice system should not be a substitute for a well-functioning community mental health system. Research conducted by the Vera Institute of Justice shows that it can cost 2 to 3 times more for a person with serious mental illness to become involved in the criminal justice system compared to receiving treatment in community. The most cost-effective strategy is to provide accessible treatment that keeps people with mental illnesses out of the criminal justice system in the first place. We must reverse the decades of neglect that denied our most vulnerable communities access to good jobs, reliable transportation, safe housing, good schools, and quality health care. We need to invest in the basic building blocks of strong and stable communities so that our communities can thrive. It is, from a budget, public policy, and human perspective, it is better to receive the services you are proposing for this new facility in a community setting. We strongly urge the Board of Supervisors to not commit limited county funding to the construction of this facility.
Thank you. Rita?
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Rita Baruch. I'm a Contra Costa resident, voter, and worked for over 23 years here providing services to women and children in Contra Costa in health services, perinatal and labor and delivery. And I want to reinforce that I saw every single week the need for additional services that would prevent problems from escalating. We saw so many people that we considered at risk, and what I found remarkably was with short-term counseling and brief interventions, women who would have developed more serious problems did not. I implore you, these are different times. Search your hearts. Listen to what you're hearing here. This is a time to really deal. We cannot afford to commit $20 million and then the ongoing 5. Where are you going to get that money? What are you going to cut to get that money? And please do consider that if the proposal was to build it in your district, near your neighbors, what would you do? Please think hard. Thank you.
Barbara Sewin.
Barbara Serwin had to leave, but I believe each of you has the letter from the Mental Health Commission where it was unanimously agreed that we support the sheriff's proposal, and the sheriff did spend a lot of time. We spent time in discussion, and the whole commission unanimously voted.
Thank you. Okay, we will continue on. Next we have, is this, I'm not sure, Claudia Martinez from Richmond, part of CCCRJC. No. Okay. Who? What's your name?
Dr. Ngonitzashe Kundidzora. I'm a clinical psychologist. I've worked doing dual diagnosis treatment both in the San Francisco City Jail as well as currently at the Kaiser Chemical Dependency Recovery Program in Vallejo. I can say unequivocally that treatment outside of incarceration is superior to treatment inside of incarceration. It's more economical. It allows the people to actually use the tools and skills that we provide in treatment in their lives as opposed to in a cell. And I want to get to one point that is probably something that's not going to be spoken to. The children of people who are incarcerated. There's actually been an incredible amount of research on the people, of the kids of those we in jail. And their truancy rates go up, their criminal behavior goes up, their drug abuse goes up, their dropout rates go up. If we can find any way to not incarcerate parents and not break up families, we need to take it. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Dunn.
Make this short and sweet. Honorable Supervisors, I speak as a parent whose loved one is currently in the 4C psychiatric ward, so I know the value of mental health care. And as a mental health commissioner member of the NAMI Contra Costa Board, I'm speaking for myself, but I strongly support the sheriff's use of these funds because they're doing two things: real community stakeholder outreach and ongoing involvement for the future, and really helping incarcerated persons who are gravely mentally ill. Something the board has to remember. This has been a crisis 50 years in the making with emptying of state hospitals. 350,000 persons in jail, 35,000 hospital beds. Here in Contra Costa County, 620 to 720 inmates, 240 to 270 severely mentally ill. You know, high rate. Because of state funding requirements and constraints, you can't just flip a switch and have non-prison treatment facilities right away. Very quickly, with Laura's Law, the board took a major step toward helping the most vulnerable among us. You've got another opportunity to help this population. Please don't let it pass by again. Thank you for your consideration and support.
Thank you. Edith Pastorin. Okay. Followed by Donald, Margaret, a number of names here from the law office. Welcome.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Edith Pastrano. I'm from Richmond, California with ACE, Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment, and I'm here to speak out against the proposal to expand the detention facility of West County. This proposal presents a representation of complete disregard to the multitude of vital needs that my community lacks. Currently, we do not have a local hospital available to treat people with critical conditions. People lose precious time just traveling to be seen by a doctor in crowded waiting rooms. We have not yet figured out how we're going to provide healthcare access for all in Contra Costa County. We do not have enough affordable youth programs to engage students outside of school to keep them off the streets and away from being racially targeted and criminalized for being the color of their skin by police who've sworn to protect and serve. But who do they protect and who do they serve? When people of color are the smaller percentage of the total population in this county, yet we represent a disproportionate makeup of over 47% in criminal cases. I'm infuriated. And I'm infuriated that for years we have to beg for the basics to survive, to feel like dignified human beings. I'm infuriated because we just walked past the placard of Cesar Chavez representing unity and strength, and also the placard for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Youth Humanitarian Award, put out forth by this supervisor board of this county. How dare we ignore for what many years community leaders have been fighting for, especially in this time when racism has run rampant and is evident that these are not systems of protection, and they're not systems that are equipped to provide health or healing. These are systems of oppression that are targeting people who look like me and grew up like me.
Thank you.
This board has their work cut out. We have to first figure out how we're going to fund education, healthcare, and much needed social services. As a taxpayer, constituent, and member of this county, I demand that this board vote no on the expansion of the West County Detention Facility.
Darnell from Ceasefire. Darnell from Ceasefire. Do we have Darnell who's here from Ceasefire? Okay, thank you. Jessica from Richmond.
My name is Jessica Peregrina Ramirez, and I am a resident of Richmond. I have to acknowledge the problem, and I have to say it. We have powerful white people who want to impact my life and the people who I care about. People of color, okay? Prisons are a systematic tool to enforce structural racism and classism. Black and brown and poor have high rates of incarceration and inequality. The people who go to jail, they get isolated, abused, deprived of access to medical, mental health, education. They don't get better there. Our government leaders have engaged in a perpetual mistake of thinking that this system is going to work. It has never worked, and it will never work. If you really want to improve our lives of people like me, right, then invest in preventive services. Go to Richmond High.
You.
Go to the elementary schools. I'm a counselor there, and I see the problems every day. I am a mental health professional.
Thank you.
And I know that this is not going to work.
You know, I appreciate the passion. We did say 1 minute. We will remain at 1 minute. If you go over that, I will be turning the mic off. Let's respect the process. Patricia Polk. Excuse me, I'm trying to. Do you have people that has filled out a speaker card that has not spoken? Could you come to the front?
Hi, my name is Indigo Mateo, and I represent myself and also the organization, the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights. And I just wanted to make some observations about stuff that I've been hearing here. And it seems that the Sheriff's Department is kind of asking the community to respect the process and trust the jail process and mass incarceration and the process of rehabilitating people. And I hear a lot of people in this room saying that it is now time to make a pivot from that process, and especially now in the current age that we live in. And I think that phrases like trauma-informed and campus and gold standards of mental health resources in jail are very, very misleading. And I think it's a co-optation of things that people in this room have worked very hard to uplift and speak about in the community. So I think it's a good time to think about that pivot. And again, who do we want to be in this moment, and how are we going to use the power that we have been given? People in this room have used their time and voice to make a strong claim that we need more community services. And I just ask that you all use your power to listen to that.
Thank you.
Good afternoon now. Giovanna Fajardo, born and raised in Bay Point, part of ACE, Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment. I have friends and family members that have been in and out of jail, one in particular who needed mental health services and didn't get it. And I understand it. Now that he's out, he's still not getting it. And for us to stand here and say, yes, this is going to help people in jail, that's an alternative fact. We all know that's not going to help them being in jail. We need resources for our community. As now a mother, I'm scared for my son, for the future that he has knowing this expansion. And for our family members that will be detained or could be detained, we don't want this. And we'll come here and we'll be here every day, and we'll keep coming every time this application for expansion is held, because we've been here before and we'll keep coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Rosa Arriaga. Yo vivo en el condado de Richmond. Estoy aquí para pedirles, sobre todo, que no es necesario estar pagando tantas cárceles. Se necesitan más hospitales, escuelas y campos deportivos para los niños. Y sobre todo,
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rosa Arriaga. I live in the city of Richmond, and I'm here to basically say that we do not need to be spending more money in jails. We need more schools. We need more sports programs.
Se necesita todo, sobre todo para el cuidado de la salud de las personas de la tercera edad y jóvenes y para todos los niños y personas que necesitamos.
We need to invest in more health services for seniors and youth and families and everyone who needs these types of services.
Es todo, muchas gracias.
That is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Could you repeat her name? Excuse me. Excuse me. For the record, could you repeat her name? I'm sorry.
Her name is Rosa Arriaga.
Okay. Is there anyone else who has filled out a card and I have not called your name, or anyone that has not filled out a card and want to speak? Come to the front. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. My name is Ankush with Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment. I actually wanted to direct my comment directly at Supervisor Burgess, because let's be honest, it's all going to come down to you right here, how this goes. I met you last week. I think you remember that. We came to the Board of Supervisors retreat where you spoke with 8 women, immigrant women from Antioch, who were feared for their lives of what would happen if they were deported. I spoke with them yesterday as well. And actually, you gave them your promise, right, that you would stand up for the community and work behind the scenes and in these meetings, and they were pretty happy about that. Last night, I talked to Ana Carmona. I think you remember her as well. She was kind of disappointed that, this proposal was going to go through. I think public trust has been mentioned a few times here. Sheriff Livingston has violated the public trust by breaking the Trust Act, right, AB 4, collaborating with ICE, which is illegal. So she said, Anna, she couldn't be here today, but she said she was going to pray that you made the right decision and that you would hold your word. Yesterday, Ace was in Antioch talking to folks in the community at the 99-cent store. A lot of folks, many who voted for you, Supervisor Burgess, were pretty disappointed as well. They were like, some of them were like, no, I know she's going to do the right thing. I know she's not going to vote for this, frivolous jail expansion. So it's really up to you.
Thank you.
Are you going to stand with the people who voted for you, or are you going to stand with them over there?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Lee Turner, and I greet you in the name of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And I thank the Lord that I'm here today to represent. We don't need any more jails. They have plenty of them, and they have the people in them. Now, we got to save the people from going to jail and give them something to do. We have to give them mental health. We got to feed them. We got to clothe them. We got to give them a place to stay. I might not sound like I'm saying anything, but this is real life, and this is really what's going on. You're sitting up there on your seat, and you're going to judge me for who I am, but I'll tell you one thing. I love each and every one of you, and I want your whole family to be blessed, and I hope none of your family would ever experience mental illness. I experienced mental health, and good thing I had Medi-Cal to go to the doctor, and I've been seeing my doctor, and from there I've been talking, and I've been letting out things that really hurt me, and now I'm reading a book and might get ready to write one. So pray for me.
Thank you.
I'll pray for you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the board?
Can I acknowledge a letter when we're done after?
You can actually do that at this time.
Okay. I think it's important to note that we also received a letter from the prison, a public letter from the prison law office, which is working with a number of counties around the state to improve conditions of incarceration and improve services, and specifically they are talking with Contra Costa County, and this letter says regarding what they call unconstitutional conditions of confinement in Martinez Detention Facility. And what they've said, and I think this is important because this has been the subject of some discussion, that the construction of new jail beds is not compelled by and would not resolve the prison law office's negotiations with the county. In fact, they have focused a lot on behavioral health, and I think they make a couple of points that are just important, and I'll just state them briefly. So they share the goal of enhancing behavioral health services and reducing recidivism, and say, in the course of our decades working with correctional systems, we have found that providing mental health care in correctional facilities is the most expensive and least effective way for a public entity to deliver mental health care. They go on and say, while the county is poised to spend $25 million on the construction of new jail facilities and to commit to $5 million in annual operational cost, directing those funds toward the expansion of mental health services and reentry resources in the community would more effectively reduce recidivism and meet the behavioral health needs of the population. And I think it's also important to note, because we've had a lot of discussion about the pretrial program, they acknowledge the county has made some strides in reducing its incarceration rate, but those efforts have been constrained by limited resources. And it says the county has a pretrial services program intended to divert some defendants from custody, but the program does not screen the vast majority of individuals in pretrial custody for potential release. The county should direct its resources to scaling up these programs and other reforms to prevent individuals from entering the jail system in the first place, and thereby reducing overcrowding in the jails and reducing the cost of providing constitutionally adequate conditions of confinement. And finally, the county should implement jail management reforms to better utilize existing resources. According to the county's own jail needs assessment, 19% of the inmate population at West County are ICE detainees. These beds could be used to meet the county's needs, not the federal government. And the county currently uses, I think this last point is significant because it gets into medium security, high security. The county currently uses an antiquated jail classification system that results in the systematic assignment of prisoners to higher security levels than necessary. As a result, West County has empty beds while Martinez is dangerously overcrowded. The implementation of straightforward, well-established jail management reforms would allow the county to run a safer, more humane jail without expending tens of millions of dollars to build new jail space. So I think it's important that this letter, because we've been in discussions with them, acknowledges that there are more effective uses of these funds to address the jail issue. And they do point out that these new jail beds that would be created would not be open until 2021, and that the county would still need to address the current, what they call constitutional violations in the Martinez facility before then. So I want to acknowledge, I think this is an important letter that we all have. I think they had to leave, that's why they're not here, but it's important to acknowledge, I think, because it responds to some of the discussions that we had earlier.
Okay. So, at this time, we have no more speakers, so we will bring it back to the board. And let me just say, there's a couple of very pointed remarks that was made towards me, so I want to just clarify one thing. No one has to tell me. I know I'm African American, and I have always tried to serve the community of Contra Costa as a whole, but not without acknowledging who I am. And I realize that the population that are within our jails are overpopulated with African Americans, and that is a real issue. And one day we are going to have to figure out how to serve that. But the issue that's before us today is twofold. One is through AB 109, we have a real issue with making sure that people do not continue to go through recidivism, and that we are able to try to work through those problems while we have them incarcerated, so when they get off, that they will not go through recidivism, but that they would have an opportunity to get the type of proper programs during incarceration that will allow them to be active and citizens that people will look at and want them to return because they have a set of skills that will allow them to do that. And at the same time, to have them being able to reunite with their families. And that's a real good program, because when you have nowhere to go after you are released and you get your couple of dollars and the bus ride or the cab ride, you're dropped off and there's nothing. And so what do you think the case is going to be? Those individuals will return to the system. So I think with AB 109 and our ability to do the various programs that's needed there, that we stand a chance. And I really do want to see those programs continue to exist within the jail system and their incarceration time, that it would be used wisely in preparing them for being able to be active members of the community. The other thing is that, you know, we really downplay something that's been overstated for, well, I won't say overstated, but prepared for, I guess is what I'm looking for, in terms of our mental health population. We have a real issue there. There's not a meeting that goes by that we're not talking about the issue of mental health. We have a problem, and we have an opportunity to try to help with that problem while people are incarcerated, once again, so that when they get out, that they have identified their service need and are connected to those services. It's not enough for individuals with mental health problems to be incarcerated and they've received nothing along the way, and then they're faced back into society. Well, once again, there's nothing for them to connect to that will continue to provide service. So once again, this is not any part of a Trump administration that's making decisions here today. These are people that are my colleagues, are those that are very thoughtful in the way that they do business. We disagree on what it's going to take to meet some of the big picture obligations that we have as a board to make sure that everyone within the county are being able to be served. This will be something that this board will have to tackle with, regardless of whether we go through this grant issue. With the grant, it gives us opportunity. It gives us opportunity to get ahead of the game instead of trying to search for those dollars to build the facilities needed for both of these very vital needs that we have, whether it's AB 109, incarcerated, or whether it's mental health folks that are incarcerated, not having services while incarcerated. So I think that I was very actively supportive of the initial grant that we applied for. I actually sat on the state's committee with, at that time, SB 1022, and we weren't able to get the funding there. And since then, we had to suffer with some things because we did not have facilities to be able to accommodate the need that we have here in Contra Costa. So yes, I will be supporting this recommendation because I think we have to look at the big picture and all of the needs that we have within our communities to try to at least start moving in the right direction. So with that, Supervisor Anderson.
Not Mitch Offit, another white woman, though. I will acknowledge I am a white woman, as has been pointed out several times, but I would like to point out that I grew up in Hawaii, where I grew up in a very multicultural community where I was, in fact, a minority. And I sometimes find it very peculiar here on the mainland when it's sort of pointed out, hey, you're a white woman. You know, we're all people. So I would love to sort of keep that out of the equation as we discuss this. I think it's really significant to point out that my preference absolutely is to keep people, those who are mentally ill, out of our jails. all of us up here have worked on various initiatives, and when I mention the Stepping Up initiative, that is just one other tool that I hope this board will embrace to reduce the number of mentally ill individuals in our jail. As was mentioned, we adopted Laura's Law in this county, an assisted outpatient treatment plan to help the most severely mentally ill who very likely may end up in jail because of their behavior, because of their conduct. As we were talking with the Sheriff's Department, we're now sending out mental health evaluation teams, the MET teams, who go out and do the follow-up when people have an episode of mental illness to try to help people get into the treatment that they need. We are training, every sheriff's deputy is trained in how to interact with the mentally ill so that they do not have some of the tragic encounters we're seeing in other communities. We are working with our Police Chiefs Association to ensure that all police officers in this county receive that same level of training, because we do have a significant number of mentally ill in our communities and engaging in our justice system. Yes, we have an issue with racial disparity in our jails, and that's why we have gone ahead and we've appointed a commission to look at this very issue. Why do we have a disproportionate number of youth of color who get sucked into our system? What are we doing to help prevent that? You know, we had Sean Casey here talking about First Five. We have our Head Start preschools. It does start at a very, very early age of how do we prevent mental health issues? How do we help people not get involved in our justice system? And we also have a health system, a very robust health system in Contra Costa County that is really looking at mental health. As you look at their primary care visits, part of the screening procedure is to try to help identify those who need mental health where they can. We're talking about our homeless population, that oftentimes those who don't avail themselves to services are some of our mentally ill individuals that do engage in our justice system. I have in Danville, yes, we have homeless people, we have mentally ill people. I've got Ivor, who many people who've worked in Danville know very well, who jumps out in traffic and tries to scare people. He was out in the street last week, and we were trying to get him some additional help. So now we're engaging with our police departments to really start a core program that sends teams out there to engage with our homeless individuals. So what I'm saying today is we are doing some things in this county. We want to do more to help our mentally ill before they engage in the justice system. But the stark reality is that we do have people who are incarcerated, who are mentally ill. We need to have sufficient tools to help them, not just while they're in jail, but to provide the treatment there, the warm handoffs that will enable them when they do get out to not fall into the same cycle that brought them there in the first place. I am supportive of this, obviously, but I am not just supportive of this. I continue to be supportive of every single initiative that we can take on reasonably in this county to keep the mentally ill out of our jails. We don't want to see an increase in that number. And this is an opportunity. We've had our nurses here, and we appreciate your great service. In front of me is not a $70 million grant for a new health care facility. What's in front of me is an opportunity to do the right thing for the mentally ill in our jails and hopefully help the nurses who work in our jail facility so that they will have reasonable opportunities for increased safety to truly help the people that they went into nursing for in the first place. We have a tremendous amount of people. Not everyone who supports something shows up, and it's great to make Diane feel like as the new county supervisor that she's somehow not standing up for what she stood for when she ran for election. What each of us stand up for is to look at each issue that comes before us, to listen to every person who speaks before us, to read all of the information before us, and make the very best decision we possibly can. It's not just listening to the loudest voice in the room. It's using our intellect. It's using the resources we have to make the very best decision for the entire community.
Supervisor Burgess.
Okay, here we go. So what I understand is the best defense to keep people out of jail is to make sure we have effective social services, early education, access to health care and mental health services, improving housing options, and job opportunities. I agree with you. I think that was part of the message that I've heard today. I believe that when people don't have hope, they are even more at a disadvantage. And that comes from coming from low income, dealing with circumstances where you have parents that are struggling with, either language issues, mental health issues, financial issues. People start sometimes with very little choices in their lives. Listening today, I'm really concerned about the racial disparity. It's unacceptable. But I also recognize the folks that are running this jail aren't all the people that are bringing the people to the jail. There's collectively a law enforcement that's bringing them there. And I'd like to explore how we can do better. I'm also concerned about the higher than state, or the fact that Richmond feels that we haven't worked with them. And I challenge our staff to do better. Like I said earlier, this is my first month. So, I'm challenging my staff for us to do better. I'd like to find alternatives to incarceration. I'd like to see bail reform. I'd like to see treatment courts, and I'd like to see mental health courts so that we're keeping people out of jail. I'd like to figure out ways that we can really invest in preventing people from going back to jail. So that's an important priority for me. I'm worried about the relationship between our community and our law enforcement, particularly about trust. And I would like to see what happens when we're exploring this relationship with ICE. I agree our schools need to be better equipped, particularly in those communities that are hurting. I've spent time in some of those communities. I've had personal life experiences which you wouldn't necessarily expect coming from someone that looks like me, but I have had those experiences. I'm concerned about our safety care workers. I thought that we had done some work in the hospital in the the delivery, and so I'm interested in hearing what's happened there. But I'm also interested in our healthcare workers in the jails. I want to make sure they're being protected. I support therapeutic rehabilitative approaches rather than punitive approaches. We have a huge problem with addiction in our community, and you're reading about the opioid problem, and I'm seeing that in my own communities. And I want to make sure that we're doing prevention, and that means that we are doing meaningful work to get to those people that are having risky behavior and trying to get in front of it. I believe in community-based programs to prevent it. I want to break the pipeline. I have a brother that's mentally ill. Never thought I'd talk about it while I was sitting up here. He was arrested. He's schizophrenic. And I'll tell you, I would have never thought that you would be relieved to have a loved one arrested and put into jail. But we thought maybe he would finally get the help he needed. You would think that the stigma of having a child or a parent arrested would be a horrible thing. But for lots of families, this is a particular opportunity to hopefully get them the help that they need. And if this was my last day, this might not be the thing that I would want to put money into. This is my first big rodeo. And I'm going to say this is not the only thing. It's not either or. This is the beginning. And as your county supervisor that has 4 years, to develop a relationship with people that think that this me voting for this is going against you, you will learn that I am with you. But in this particular case, I am sorry that it comes across that way. So that's my comments.
Thank you. It is a big vote, a tough vote, and I think that sometimes the picture doesn't look the same to everyone, and we have a county-wide responsibility. So I commend you, because I know it's a lot of pressure when you make a vote that doesn't necessarily go along with all the voices that we've heard today. Supervisor Mitchoff.
Thank you. And to pick up on that, that's one of my notes. My job is to represent, as is everyone here, and anyone in elected office, among many in the audience who are elected, to represent everyone, not just those who appear before me or come in last to advocate for a position. I'm actually thinking today of those who are in M module over in the jail across the street. And I do want to make a comment. Mayor Valdez has left, but I think she was criticizing me relative to my work experience at the sheriff's office. If anything, it's given me a perspective that I think if Sheriff Livingston were here and former Sheriff Roop would tell you that I'm probably one of the more critical people of the sheriff's office because of the information that I gained and the experience I gained. But in this instance, I do support this, and I, along with Diane, I also have family in the mental health system. I have a cousin who committed suicide. I'm very familiar with mental health issues. And not only for those of you who've come today and advocated on behalf of those in the community who need services, but we're very aware of that, not only here in Contra Costa County. Mental health issues are going to be the next big, and I don't say that as a positive thing, issue that this country is going to have to deal with. There are many people with various issues on the spectrum, and they're needing the services in the community. I want to thank Mr. Casey for coming. I don't see him still here, but Supervisor Anderson is correct. Getting people early on, young children, breaking that cycle of violence. It's one of the things that I'm most proud of in my work at Employment and Human Services, were those many preventive and interventive programs that I had the privilege to work on in an administrative capacity, because they work. And the dollars have been decimated, and I know you don't want to hear that, but they have. And some of our dollars are categorical, and I'm not saying that's the appropriate way to do things, but in this instance, these dollars are. I want to comment to those who think that we're expanding a jail in Richmond. Please know there are 2 jails in Central County, and that's fine. I'm not saying that it only should be one here and one there, but this is a countywide issue, and we as a county need to take these issues up. So I recognize that West County feels that they're perhaps being imposed upon. I do not look at it that way. Even though it's a minimum security facility out in Marsh Creek, it poses a lot of problems to my constituents and Supervisor Burgess's constituents out there, because at times, hasn't happened recently to the best of my knowledge, but there were a lot of runaways, and that frightened the community. So, and I can remember, I don't know how many of you do, Under Sheriff Caston said he was here. I didn't work for the sheriff in 1981 when that jail, well, no, I went to work for the sheriff in 1981. The jail had opened just a few years beforehand. There was tremendous opposition to placing a jail in a downtown area. And I checked, the West County facility there are homes nearby, but there are also a lot of open spaces and industrial parks. So I'm just saying that we all have responsibility to take on facilities. East County has our landfill. I know Richmond and West County has a landfill, but that was a big battle too. So, I get that argument, but there are those of us who are in our own communities dealing with countywide issues too. I was in a meeting yesterday. I saw Cynthia Ballon here for a sobering center. You're talking about preventive services for those who have alcoholic issues. We're looking to put a sobering center in Central County that all of the police agencies will be able to bring people to. So, we are balancing the concerns and trying to address the needs. But to get to this specifically, if we do nothing and everything stays the same, the cost of doing nothing now when there is an obvious need will only cost more in the future. And yes, it would be wonderful to take these dollars and put them toward other needs in the community, but only those already outside, either pre or post incarceration, would receive services. That would still leave those in the facility not getting services. Ma'am, I'm talking now. You are being rude and disrespectful. We sat here. Please be quiet. Again, that does nothing for those incarcerated. I'm going to ask our those who are here to, they may need to take action. I hate to do that.
Hold on. Look, this has been a very respectful process, and we're not going to end it on a bad note. The bottom line, okay,
No.
Can I will ask that you be escorted out, ma'am.
No.
So
we all want to have a chance to speak too, so let each of us have a chance, and I know we're all going to have a chance.
One of the
Ma'am, I'm going to ask that the officers would help. We still have a lot of the people business to take care of today. So either calm down and allow my other colleagues to speak, or we will have to ask you to leave.
Okay.
Okay. Continue, Karen.
Thank you. And I would note, and I appreciate the chair's speaking, it is now 2:30. We could have extended the time, but you would have had to break and go out and feed your parking meters more than you've already had to do. So we were trying to be respectful of your time. All right, come on.
Go ahead.
Thank you. It's a balance of funds, and Contra Costa County, as previously mentioned, has been at the forefront of reentry programs. It's time to dedicate resources to those who need these services that we have not been previously able to provide due to facility physical limitations. And while I appreciate and respect my colleague Supervisor Joya for bringing attention to the Prison Law Office and their memo of today, I think it's a little disingenuous given the letter they sent to Sheriff Livingston on February, what date? Let me go to my right. Whatever date it was last week or whatever, where they are saying essentially there are no therapeutic services to prisoners with psychiatric disabilities. And the county has acknowledged that there is limited administrative and clinical space necessary to provide these, and they are working with our staff to ensure additional mental health facilities are done. So while I can appreciate in one hand that they're not here and a letter was read, I think the full story indicates that they recognize that these services need to be provided in a better environment than at MDF. So with that, I will be supporting the application.
Supervisor Joya.
Thank you. Let me say. Let me ask, we're trying to conclude this. Let's sort of, I realize that there's a very passionate, and let me just say, and strong feeling, and I understand it, and I think we have to always remember that there are battles and there are wars, right? And that this is an ongoing issue. So let me just say a couple comments. Let me start by saying I respect my colleagues. I obviously have a different perspective. And I know we all bring our experiences to our decisions here. And let me say, I think so often, right, we are making decisions in the narrow focus. And while we've heard from a few, the Mental Health Commission, who've said we need to focus on mental health services for folks who are incarcerated, and we want to improve that, and I hear that, I think we need to also step back and understand with the limited resources we have, because we don't spend as much on things that we would like, that it forces us to step back and say, how do we spend these limited resources in a way that will have the greatest benefit? And I still believe that spending $25 million to construct this expansion and $5 million a year ongoing can be better spent to have more wide benefit in mental health, in services for people prior to incarceration, after incarceration. In fact, I think the prison law office letter is important because it acknowledges there are still things we can do in our current system to reduce the jail population, and that we need to take all of those steps first to reduce the jail population before expanding and building new beds, and that we need to address the services for people outside incarceration first. The $5 million that we're allocating here would have greater benefit to more people and greater avoided cost if we were spending it to prevent people from getting into prison, to jail. So that's savings. And yes, so I think that's, and I understand, I relate this. The ICE issue is an important issue here because we're dealing now with issues of trust. We're dealing with how people feel about law enforcement. And there is a time to revisit this, and I hope that as we look at this, that this board working with the sheriff will revisit that contract and truly the cost that we bear as a result of having that. So I appreciate everybody who came today, and I know people feel very strongly about this. It doesn't end here. That this is an ongoing issue. Well, we'll see first what happens with the grant process. Despite what happens there, I think we need to continue to sort of push for services outside. And I need to remind people, we're saying how great we've done on reentry. Some of the people who are here remember several years ago, that didn't come without a fight. Remember when there was a split on the Community Corrections Partnership to spend all of the AB 109 money, or almost all, on our law enforcement departments? Do you all remember that? And it took the community, it took the Community Advisory Board, it took our health, folks from our health director, our social services director, the court, and a police chief from Richmond to have a split and a negotiation at the CCP that caused about 25% of the AB 109 monies to go toward community-based reentry. That didn't happen without strong advocacy, and if that advocacy didn't happen, most of that money would have gone to the sheriff, district attorney, and probation. And 75% are going to county departments, including health and social services and the courts. But my point is that is why I think there's been this issue of what will the sheriff do next with the beds that were closed. Because the sheriff was not originally in favor of spending all the money of this 25% of the dollars for community-based. Now he is, and we appreciate that. So I think I'm just acknowledging that there's still this lack of trust of what will happen with those 400 beds that are allegedly being closed. So I've said my comments. I obviously will be opposing the proposal to go forward, and I understand and I respect. I want to say I respect my colleagues all from the place that they're coming.
Okay. Thank you. I thank all of my colleagues for the efforts that's put into this, because this isn't just happening today. There's been a lot of communication that has taken place, a lot of back and forth in trying to figure out the right way to go and understanding the impacts. But let me also say that this is not a guarantee. It's an opportunity that we see to be able to provide some services that are much needed within our community. So, Sheriff, I think you all have probably put together one of the best proposals. I know few years back you had, and so we're hopeful that this time that it will go through and that we will be able to provide services for our constituents as a whole. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and move the recommendation that is before us, and that is to go forward with the grant application and hopefully be a winner in it.
I'd be happy to second that motion.
Okay. There is a motion by myself and seconded by Board Member Anderson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed.
Okay. It passes 4-1. Okay. Thank you. Next on our agenda is that we will be adjourning to closed session and returning at some point to adjourn.